Biedenbender.
Here.
Crocker.
Here.
Cullum.
Here.
Dagwan.
Here.
Flores.
Here.
Rep Grissetti.
Present.
Hebert.
Present.
Levesque.
Here.
Neary. Schnepp.
Here.
Steinhilber.
Here.
Tinsley. Wallace.
Here.
Yeah, 12.
Please note, Mr. Neary, Councilor Neary called me and said that he's ill tonight, so he'll be excused today. Thank you very much. May I have you stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? Moment of silence. In accordance with Massachusetts General Law, Chapter 30A, Section 20, I must inquire whether anyone is recording this meeting, and if so, please make your presence known to me. Seeing none, I will open it for public comment. Anybody wishing to come forward and speak to the councilors, please do so. Sign in and say hello.
Good evening. I've already signed in. My name is John Jope. I live in Centerville, and I'm speaking to you this evening as the Vice Chair of the Barnstable Council on Aging. Later on, you're going to hear from Mrs. Madeline Noonan, who is the Senior Services Director, and she will be talking with you about a possible name change for the Barnstable Senior Center. In our May meeting last year, after much discussion, the Council on Aging unanimously approved and supported a name change for the Barnstable Senior Center, and Maddie will give you the details on that and all the reasons. Thank you.
Thank you for your service. Anyone else wishing to come forward? This is far too easy on us. Are you sure? Okay, I'll close public comment. Councilors, any response? Okay, that part got easy. Oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Councilor Hebert.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. John, thank you very much for taking the time to come and talk to us. I really appreciate it, and I'm very impressed with what the council is doing. But I asked if you could come, and I asked if you'd keep it brief, and you did. Thank you very much. Thanks.
Thank you. Vice President Flores?
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. John and other members of the council, I want to say thank you for all of the work that you've done over the past X amount of years, having been the liaison for the past 2 years. I know I attended so many meetings and tossed around so many different names. There were nighttime meetings and daytime meetings. So, Maddie, I'm sure when you come up here and give us the presentation, you'll give us a little bit of the history, but I don't think anything was ever so thoroughly reviewed, debated, and discussed in terms of coming up with whatever it is that you're going to recommend this evening. So thank you for your time and service and energy.
You all set, councilors? Thank you very much. We would look to our town manager, Mark Ells, Communications.
Good evening, Mark Ells, Town Manager. This is the Town Manager's update for the period of March 8th through March 21st. I wanted to stop for one moment, though, and thank everybody for their patience with all the construction that's going on out there. I know if you've been down C Street Way, or if you've been over to Route 149 in the Mills, or if you've been on Route 28, there's been a lot of activity, and that will continue. I want to thank Councilor Cullen for all of her support in communicating and leadership on C Street, and I know Matt and Paula have been very helpful in the Mills, as well as all of the council. So we really want to thank you for taking the time during these very important construction projects to help us do a better job in reaching out to the constituents in the area. I know you're right in the middle of a neighborhood on C Street, and you're certainly in a neighborhood and a business district down in the mills, and then Route 28 impacts us all. We have a lot more construction coming. So, I know there were a lot of questions at the recent hearing about Vineyard Wind and how that construction sequencing would work. We've got the intersection of Willow Street and Route 28 coming. And we've got Main Street, Barnstable Village that Councilor Flores has been working with us actively on. These are big projects, and they take multiple seasons. And you know that, everywhere in the world stops a lot of construction in the cold weather. Not everybody in the world stops during the warm weather. We do. And so we really have 2 shoulder seasons to construct, which typically elongates the construction that we do. Try to get some done in the summer, but we don't want to be disruptive. So we thank everybody for their patience. Please, C Street, know there's construction. Route 149 through the village, there's construction. And Route 28 at Bursa's is still under construction. So everybody seems to forget them. They'll get well down into C Street, and then they'll be like, oh, geez. And so I know our police department, I was just talking with Andy McKenna, and they're on it, and they'll continue to try to improve, communications, as well as Lynn Poyant and DPW assist there. So thank you. I just noticed it coming in, and I thought I'd say something about it. We're proceeding with the tasks in the budget action calendar for FY 2020. I do plan to approve the FY 2019 rates as proposed, with the exception of the proposed increased charge to mattresses and box springs from $17, which would move up to $50. We currently dispose of about 2,200 mattresses and box springs per year. A state grant that subsidized the disposal costs of mattresses and box springs has been eliminated, leaving us with full cost recovery for the disposal. We're applying for another grant this spring, similar to the former grant program, and we'll know if we shall receive the grant by the fall of 2019. Now, these new fees would go in place on July 1st. So, and then those monies, if we were awarded this future grant, wouldn't occur till January of 2020. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to approve a range for Public Works to work within. And it's the 17 up to the 50. The 17 is where we're at receiving the full grant. The 50 is full cost recovery. The reason I'm doing that is if we don't do that, we just shift the cost onto our sticker holders. That's the way that we recover costs there. It's a per unit cost, full cost recovery. So I'm going to give them that range to work with and task the DPW with pursuing all options to minimize costs. A change within that range would require notification and approval by the town manager, and we'll set the formal rate but for July 1st by June 1st. So I'm giving DPW some time here to try to look at other cost-saving measures and make some decisions relevant to the grant. But by June 1st, we're going to set the rate out there. And then for it to change, they would come back to me and say to me, we need to be at 35, or we need to be at 50, or we can go back to 17 because we got the grant. But I just thought jumping it to 50 for full cost recovery could result, 2,200 mattresses a year, jumping from 17 to 50, it could end up in the woods. I saw one right at the corner of, 6th Ave and Craigville Beach Road today driving home, and we haven't even changed the fees yet. So I'm concerned about us incurring this cost and really just shifting it from an enterprise fund out to the general fund. So we'll be very mindful of that. DPW is aware. I talked to Division Head Kelleher, and he's actively working on this. So we'll keep you advised. I'll put it in my June report where we are on this, okay? Thank you. Otherwise, we're proceeding as scheduled with the budget, and we'll commence at your next town council meeting, capital improvement projects. We continue our discussions with Fish and Wildlife regarding the future potential to site water supply wells on the 250-acre parcel owned by the Commonwealth that directly abuts the Hyannis Public Water System. The town continues to work with Mass Fish and Wildlife to finalize an agreement that would enable the town to install public water supply wells on the 250-acre Hyannis Ponds Wildlife Management Area. We submitted our recommended proposed public water supply well locations and associated withdrawal information back in January. Following the January federal shutdown, Fish and Wildlife informed us that USGS was delayed in proceeding with the review of most of the recent information from Barnstable, about 30 days. We're in continuous communications, and we have our next meeting, which we hope to get closure on much of this on March 28th. So in about a week, we'll be meeting with you. So next meeting, I hope to report how we're going to proceed. I spoke with Jack Units, Barnstable County Administrator, regarding county farm parcel for future uses including which includes the potential future public water supply, citing future potential water supply there, and also the Cape Cod Fire Training Academy. The town and the county have planned meetings to move forward with conducting exploratory test drilling on the county farm for selection of potential new well sites. And I've attached that agreement. That agreement came out of our discussions. It wasn't part of the resolution of the suit we had between the county and the town relevant to the Fire Training Academy, but it was along the lines of looking at the way that we can, rather than dispute, coordinate and cooperate relevant to these issues. So I put it in your folders just so you can have a copy and see it. They've already signed it. We're already and have been and continue to be working with our county on these issues. The other aspect of this is the Fire Training Academy, which I've received several inquiries as to what the town's position is relevant, or what my position as the town manager is relevant to the Fire Training Academy. And I'll say several things. First of all, relevant to legal issues, I've directed Charlie McLaughlin to be at my point on those legal issues. So many times you'll see Charlie respond, and that's because he is that individual that I have designated. Relevant to technical and regulatory, I've identified Dan Santos, our Director of Public Works, to play that same role on those type issues. So in recent articles in the newspaper, you may see Dan Santos quoted, and that's because he, in my opinion, has the most expertise within our staff, and also I've delegated that role for him to play for us. Neither of them are out there saying anything that they haven't talked with me about and that would not be representative of my position or opinion on the matter. More broadly, we recognize the need for a fire training academy on Cape Cod. There's no argument there from us at all. Our concern lies with the location and how we will move forward with this. So let me grab my clicker for a minute. So I'll give you my update on my discussions relevant to this. Wait a minute. I did. So you're going to have to push the button for me, Dan. Thank you, sir. I like pictures, so just to frame this, the last one is the most critical, and it also ties in with my second bullet. I'll say why, but my second item that I just went over. But these are where our public water supplies in town are located, and the round black dots are where the physical wells are. And you can see, when you take the Great Marsh out, about half our town water supply lies under half of our community. You can move that one for me, Dan. You know that we have fire and water districts in town. We have Barnstable Village, we have West Barnstable, which doesn't have physical wells, but is structured that way. We have Cotuit, we have Centerville, Osterville, Marston's Mills, And those are all separate authorities relevant to their water supply. In the case of Hyannis, there is a fire district, separate authority, but the water was originally private, and the town of Barnstable purchased it, the municipal government purchased it, and made it a division under the Department of Public Works in 2005. So we oversee municipal water in Hyannis. I know you all know that, but I don't know that our viewing public necessarily knows that. Next one, Dan. Within the Hyannis Water District, you can actually see some of our wells are in our district and some of our wells are north of our district. And our standpipes, our two major standpipes, are also north of our district, both in Barnstable Barnstable Fire District. So you can move that ahead for me one, Dan. So when we go what did I do? Oh, thank you. So when we go to the specific discussion, the reason that I said the second bullet, I get a lot of questions from people saying, where's this 250 acres and how is it located relevant to the Hyannis water system? Well, you can see that actually on the left side, the two wells, those are Barnstable water wells. So that's Barnstable Water District. The ones that are about center of this page and they kind of go down the page from top to bottom, those are the Mary Dunn wells, and then the airport well, and way down the bottom are the Mar wells. And then to the far right, those are Yarmouth's drinking water supply wells. The big green area is the 250 acres we're talking about. So you can see that this parcel immediately abuts our existing system, our existing pipes in the ground and our wells. You can also see the red Fire Training Academy is located immediately abutting Barnstable Water and Hyannis Water Supplies. Now the groundwater in this area moves east-southeast. So it moves from left to right from that red dot. So you can see why the Mary Dunn wells are of great concern. When we originally purchased this, we were in the middle of a perchlorate contamination from flares at that location. At that time, the position that I, as Public Works Director, and the Water Board took was that these activities, upgrading of public water supply wells, was not appropriate. We communicated that to the county. That's still our concern. Following that, we had the PFAS contamination relevant to fire foam used at the site. That is of concern. Any use immediately upgrading of public water supply wells is of concern. Point sources of known contamination are of greater concern. We have been working hand in hand, as long as I've been town manager, with Jack Units and former Commissioner Leo Kukunis on moving from a dispute to a cooperative sort of effort toward dealing with this upgradient use. And we still continue to do that. So I have a great working relationship with Jack Units, and I spoke with him about this today. We saw the opportunity. Number one, we need a fire training academy on Cape Cod. Number two, that isn't the best location. Certainly one that we would have preferred not be there, relevant to the two issues I've brought up. Third, there are other opportunities, and certainly it was to our advantage that Assistant Town Manager Clyburn joined us and his familiarity with Joint Base Cape Cod. And I spoke with Jack Units today, and we are very close, and Assistant Town Manager's here if you want details, but we're very close to having an implementation of that option. Not just is it viable, yes, it's viable. When are we going to go forward with it and move these training facilities to that location? So Jack and I talked about that today. It's a matter of finding a physical structure out there to house the operations in, and it's going to move. That's a win-win. The county wins, the emergency responders win, and we win. One issue out of the way. The second issue becomes cleanup. Jack and I have been discussing that. And really, if there's been a dispute, it's been between the confusing message that the regulators send us when at our wellheads, they are regulating us down to 0.07 parts per trillion of a particular contaminant, yet at a pond where we know we far exceed those levels, but it's not regulated in the pond, it's regulated at the drinking water. Or on-site upgrading and at a known point source, it is allowed to continue to exist. If there's a conflict, it's about how do we manage that? And how do we make sure that we maintain clean public drinking water? And so that is what you may have read in the newspaper, but there's no dispute going on between us and the county. The county's looking to relocate. The county's looking to have that site cleaned up. And they're in discussions with the state right now. Given that this is a national issue, certainly a Massachusetts issue, and certainly our issue, whether the state will actually take that site over and clean it up and use it kind of as a learning tool as well, so that what's done there can be replicated in other places. So all of this is going on, even as of this morning. Jack and I are meeting tomorrow to further discuss it. We meet regularly. But when Dan Santos is asked a question about the technical or regulatory aspects, he's going to give his perspective on protecting our public drinking water supply, as Charlie McLaughlin will, relevant to the legalities that would exist in this sort of a situation. So, but no, my point is we're working together on this. This is a complex issue. This pre-existed any of the people who are necessarily sitting at the table trying to resolve it now. But we'll resolve it, and we're heading in a very positive direction at this point. It's been suggested that the town can just say no and stop it. It's not that simple. So that's my presentation on that particular item. Thank you, Dan. I was asked by the Lieutenant Governor to serve on a municipal work group which consists of mayors, city, and town managers. We had our first meeting on Tuesday. Topics of discussion including the community compact. I included the handouts that they provided. If you remember, in 2017 maybe, 16 or 17, we signed into a compact both for transparency relevant to our budget, is when we put our open budget online, and to move forward with our housing production plan. We talked about the municipal modernization bill, which was an opportunity for the governor to go through existing laws and acts and procedures and try to modernize them in a way. Much of them focused on finance and the work of our town clerks, but trying to modernize old laws, acts, rules, regulations in a way that was helpful and beneficial to communities across the Commonwealth. They're going to go do number two. They're going to do round two. So they've engaged us to give input as to what other changes might make sense. And so I know Councilor Cullum and I have chatted about this, but I think we can at least have a good dialogue, a healthy dialogue. The interesting thing to me is that I meet with the Cape managers regularly in a similar sort of meeting once a month. I don't often get to meet with other mayors and city managers from across the state, except when, quite honestly, many times it's at the MMA meetings that I get to sit down with them and talk about issues. This was a very good dialogue of people who have I understand now when a legislative initiative is brought forward why, from our standpoint, it can be so clear that we need something, but when you involve all of the legislators from across the state, we have very, very different perspectives on a similar issue, and not necessarily conflicting, just different. And that was apparent in this meeting. And then finally, housing choice. And that was a very interesting discussion on the different types of housing challenges. The one commonality is that we do not have enough supply for demand. and it is in market rate right down to affordable. The discussion very much got focused on things like Chapter 40B and streamlining that process to make it more viable as an option. It was very interesting because we've been having discussions like that locally. And they went right to that. And it wasn't initiated by myself. It was initiated by, like Gardner and other communities that are out there, though they have different issues. They don't have the second house market that we have here. They have very different situations that they're trying to manage. But it was good because now we collectively can understand each other's challenges and bring back to the governor and hopefully to all of us in the Commonwealth viable improvements that hopefully can get approved and be incorporated into what we do every day. So they're going to continue to meet, and I look forward to it, and I'll keep you advised. And certainly it's just another mechanism for us to be able to carry forward our priorities here in Barnstable and on Cape Cod. There's an open house. This is an update. I provided you this last time. There's an open house for the Route 28 and Yarmouth Road intersection improvement project. Mass DOT invites the public to join them at the Hyannis Transportation Center on March 27th. Session 1's from 11 to 2. Session 2 is from 5 to 8. Attendees will have the opportunity to learn about intersection improvements, design details, construction timelines, and traffic impacts. The project team will be available to answer any questions you may have related to the project, and the goal of this project is to improve safety and traffic operations by providing a complete street to better accommodate motorists, bicycles, and pedestrians. Currently, there are numerous deficiencies within the project area, including traffic operations, intersection geometry, access, signal phasing, bicycles and pedestrians, accommodation, and emergency vehicle prioritization. The proposed project will address these concerns while improving operational efficiency and multimodal access. They're looking to move forward with this project to bid, I believe, in the fall, and construction subsequent to that. It's interesting. One of the discussions that we had under the municipal modernization was related to this complete street approach by the state, and how a larger and larger percentage of what was supposed to have been pavement improvement, road surface improvement and drainage monies now goes to other things like bike lanes and sidewalks and aesthetics, which are needed, but was that the intent of Chapter 90 and road improvement dollars? Or should they be increasing those dollars to match the added expense of these enhancements that we would like to see, pedestrian and bicycle enhancements? And that can add significant dollars to a construction project. 20 to 30% was kind of the number that was being discussed at the meeting. So either you're going to do less lineal feet of road, or you're going to get more money to do all of it the way that you had intended. So that was another interesting and absolutely correct observation by the group.
Excuse me, Mr. Manager.
Yes.
We've had some great discussions so far from you on the county affordable housing and the Willow Street intersection. Big items, and I think I'd like to take a small moment, if I could, and ask if any of my counselors would like to pursue any questions while we're
Absolutely.
still partially into those issues, because I've been approached by a number of the counselors on the county issue for first. So let's first see if there's any discussion between us regarding discussion with the manager and the county issue and the county water. Yes, Councilor Cullen.
Yes, thank you, and thank you for talking about the Fire Training Academy. It's important to all the Hyannis residents, of course, and anyone who uses the hospital or anything else. The rates are always of a concern. And but I had a question as to the time frame. Like, we're ready if we can find a building at the Joint Base. Like, what does that mean as far as time is concerned? Or do you have any time reference that we could?
I'll have the assistant town manager come up.
Thank you very much.
Yes.
We have no definitive timeline.
Okay. Are we working toward one?
Yes, we absolutely
Okay.
are. So we started this discussion, literally, the county administrator introduced the new fire marshal last July. Following that presentation, I asked Mark permission to engage them at the highest level of Joint Base Cape Cod to have discussions about, rather than building that facility here, build it there. It's a no-brainer. So that started in earnest in September. So we're about 6 months into it, and it's been, in my opinion, light speed. Like, they are doing everything but rolling out the red carpet for the county. The facilities are there. They got sidetracked a bit because there was some discussion on where the state fire training academy is going to be built, and it's going to be built in Bridgewater. But as recently as this Monday, the Cape Fire Chief supported that Bridgewater option, and the state supported building out on Joint Base Cape Cod for Barnstable County. So there are some details like this building. The site has been identified. It's gone through the Joint Oversight Group, et cetera. We know where they can locate. It's a matter of a building for storage of their equipment. There are buildings. There are tons of buildings on Joint Base Cape Cod. Would they prefer to have a brand-new building immediately adjacent to? Certainly. So I don't have a definitive timeline, but at the end of the day, they could move tomorrow. It's that imminent that they could do it. Is that the long-range goal of where they want to be? No. So I think they will end up using a mothballed building, I believe, at first. They haven't identified the exact building, but as recently as today, I was talking to Jack Units, and they are absolutely in agreement that we're going to move forward. And this also got sidetracked a bit. This discussion also opened the door for the police academy. I'm sure that you've heard that there's now a police academy that's going to bring in 45 new recruits this July. So, 6 months, it's been going very quickly, but it's not just the fire training academy. This has opened other doors. I mean, they were talking to county with 4 Cs, trying to get a police academy going, and that is now approved by the state. It's going to start this July. So I would say I'm extremely optimistic. I just don't have a date certain. I would expect within the next month to 2 months that we should be able to give you a date.
That'd be great if just some follow-up when you have the date would be
Yeah,
important. And then another question about that, if I may have a follow-up.
Mm-hmm.
We talk about moving the fire training academy and then capping it. Is that, this is probably a Dan Santos question, is that asphalt? Is that what that is? Can you explain? I have constituents that have asked how we clean up the site. Thank you.
Ultimately, Dan Santos, Director of Public Works. Ultimately, I'm not sure what the final cleanup resolution would be. I would think it wouldn't be a cap. I know there's been some discussion about a cap, but the best solution that's available today is to remove the soil and have it either taken somewhere else for disposal or treated and disposed of elsewhere, but to remove the soil. And that's right now the best and most effective treatment that's available. Capping, it's still there. So what happens if the cap fails and you end up having issues with maintenance? And so that's been really preliminary discussions on what they're proposing there. I think they're probably looking at a cap because it's, I'm sure, a lot less costly, but I'm not sure DEP would even allow it.
Thank you very much. I appreciate it.
Any other councilors regarding the water issue? I have 2 questions myself. I'll start, if I can, with Assistant Town Manager. I recall we had a major project in COMM when I was on the COMM boards, and we had no trouble having a pick of used buildings that are temporary buildings. And I'm sure we could get as much, I know it's difficult to get anything on the base, permission, all that, but the dollars are so inexpensive to get these portable buildings that nobody wants because they were beside a school when they were being built and now they want them out of there, so forth. So I would encourage you to suggest that.
Yes, sir.
Sooner is better.
Not just temporary buildings. I mean, there are literally mothballed hangars on that base.
Yeah.
There are hundreds of thousands of square feet available. It's just a matter of, is that where they want to be long-term? And I think that the county is trying to get funding to build completely new. And I don't know, they know the urgency.
Yes.
And we've done all we can to lead them to the end solution. And they know that the temporary facilities are available, and I fully expect that they will use that short-term and long-term look to build a new building. They are, they are now introducing some legislation to get some money for the waste, basically what they presented here back in July, the self-contained firefighting apparatuses, and those can be located, we've already identified the site.
Okay. Well, please encourage anything and everything.
Yes, sir,
It's time to go.
absolutely.
And if I can invite Director of DPW back, please. Dan, we are talking about capping, and an issue about capping really refers to what we know about the soil underneath it. What has never really been identified clearly is Flint Rock Pond. How do we take it from the issue of the soils in that specific area to any impact that it may have had on the pond? How do we advance the cause for a full cleanup, in other words, from the impacts?
It's actually not only Flint Rock Pond, but it's Mary Dunn Pond, which is on our property.
Yes, I
Flint
know
Rock
the
Pond
numbers
is
are much
not.
less, but
Right,
Flint
but
Rock
they're
is
both exceed
staggering.
any, drinking water standard. I'm hoping that DEP, as part of their requirement for a comprehensive site evaluation, requires the full evaluation and cleanup of the pond. I fully expect that. They haven't, to date, done that. So it's a slow process, unfortunately. But that would be the county's responsibility under guidance and direction by DEP. And again, I fully expect that that will come at some point. We haven't seen it yet, though.
Okay, and now I'd like to go back to the manager for a follow-up on that same pond issue. I recall specifically when we engaged with the county for the negotiations that have been completed, that we said it only pertains to what was described. And to my knowledge, neither of the two ponds were discussed during the process. So that is an option for us to revisit the county for a discussion with them as well, as far as
Yes.
how we address it and how we settle it.
Yes, and as Director Santos pointed out, engaging DEP in that discussion, because that's where the regulation falls.
Yes.
Yep.
Yes, I'm glad the way we handled Phase 1, because it only closed out Phase 1. It never took us to the point we are facing next, and the numbers are staggering when we saw what came out of Flint Rock.
Yep.
So thank you. I have a question with Vice President.
Just a couple getting back to the Mary Dunn wells, I'm just curious in terms of the carbon filtering system that we installed and the water that we're blending from Yarmouth. What is the time frame for all of that to continue in terms of A, the cost to us, and B, when will we reach a point where we don't have to filter that water and we don't have to buy water from Yarmouth? Do we have a short-term, long-term strategy?
We do. If we can get the filters in place and on the Mar wells, then we will be able to move toward what you're describing, to move off of Yarmouth. If they drop standards on us, then we'll have to relook at the ability to continue to blend. The siting of new additional wells will allow us to identify water sources that don't or have very limited levels of a contaminant. And that, again, we're looking at, we're hoping to expedite, but 5 years has been the general discussion that we've been using for planning for that. We also need it for future flow. And I also think that as this discussion emerges in a way that all water districts are looking at this issue the way we are, we're going to play an even broader role with our fellow water districts, because it's our residents in Barnstable, whether they're, I know right now Hyannis is the focus, but it's our residents in Barnstable. So, I don't know that that answered your question, but we're trying to move off of blending with Yarmouth, and by putting back on, we're rehabbing wells, and we're putting filters on the Mar wells. One more point, I believe that in the next 10 years, most of the water could be filtered in one way or another. I think that these emerging contaminants are everywhere, and given the detection levels that they're looking at them, it's not point sources like the Fire Training Academy that might trigger it. It's just us living on top of our drinking water. And that's,
And if in fact it's predicted that the PFOs and the PFA standards will be lowered this coming June, then that means that we'll have to do even that much more filtering of our water to meet standards?
indications more recently are that they're looking at potentially dropping the standard, but giving time for compliance. And we've got several efforts in place, Marwell treatment, expansion of existing wells that we have, and that in combination with the potential continued use of a blended water source, we should be able to manage this issue moving forward.
Thank you.
We're confident that we can.
Because it is the most critical issue that we face
Absolutely.
as Cape Codders. Without quality water,
Yep.
we're in deep trouble.
In a sense, we have an advantage, not that we've lived through what we have for the past 3 years, but that we have, and we have that experience, and we have these systems in place and plans in place. If this hits, our fellow communities, it's going to be a tough go.
I commend that Barnstable is ahead of the curve, even if
Even
it's
though
for
we
the
were
wrong
forced
reasons.
there, right? Yes, sir.
I need a follow-up as well.
Yes, sir.
I was attended the Hyannis Water Board meeting this week, and they told me that they are still pushing to get a more plentiful connection with COMM. Is that something that we are identifying as a capital needs on our part? COMM has been very generous to us in their pricing versus
Yes.
the price we're paying out of Yarmouth. So whatever we can do to continue that would please be appreciated
Yep.
by the ratepayers, if no one else.
Absolutely. I think the opportunity to blend was with Yarmouth because of the proximity to the, to the wells
Connections,
that had
yeah.
the contamination. But yes, absolutely. And we will have the same discussions with Barnstable, but I think Barnstable's in a little different position relevant to the quantity that they may have. But, long-term, we should all be interconnected because, again, it's town of Barnstable. And, thankfully, Yarmouth was there when we needed them to
Yes.
say yes to this. So, yes, we will pursue any and all options.
I'm on to the affordable, are we done with the water question? Yes. Yes, Councilor Hebert.
Thank you, Mark. You mentioned earlier that possibly DEP, the state, could use us as kind of a test group, and I'd like the sound of that, and whether it's from Community Compact or just DEP, whatever, but any experimentation that they could do to, when you mentioned the pond, I thought of a straw and sucking it out and filtering it, and that one way to clean it up. At the same time, I know that the removal of the soil is a for sure way to cut it off, but any experimentation that would save us some money would be great and do a better job of cleaning it up. But thank you very, very much.
Anyone else on county and water? I'm on to the affordable housing questions. Do we have any regarding the discussion that was initiated by the manager on affordable housing? Yes, Council Collins?
This is my nasty little ploy way of getting in a regional approach to homelessness. But I just wanted to kind of dovetail on that, since you have a kind of a captive audience of administrators and town managers from around the state, if there's any appetite to look at that sort of a thing regionally, and if that conversation could be brought up at some point. I know it's not on your short list now, but as we talk about 40B and we talk about availability of housing, the homelessness issue is one that is really important to me and always has been in this community. So thank you.
Yes, I will carry the priorities of our community forward to those tables in Boston. Okay? Yes.
Anybody else on the affordable housing issue? I have one. Mr. Manager, you and I were in some great discussions for the last month or two about the affordable housing issue, and you had offered to convene a group to address and come out with some kind of a standard to bring things forward. Would you like to have some kind of a benchmark that we might be discussing that so people realize what Barnstable is interested in doing?
Well, we're actually interested in looking at all housing and the inventory of that housing and looking at the processes from our side, we're not necessarily on the funding side of it, even though we can help to subsidize in a sense, but we want to look at the processes associated with a market rate, a senior, an affordable, and then within affordable, there's different ways to proceed with that, and one of the specifics that we're looking at, and I know that I've talked with Director Jenkins, and I tasked Assistant Town Manager Clyburn with looking specifically at 40B and that process, and are there ways to look at the timeframes and to try to streamline that in a way that would be beneficial to those who are interested in taking that particular route. And it was interesting, I did not bring that up at the meeting, but that was brought up by other communities as well, because they see that as a cumbersome process, in many cases a state regulated, driven process that can be approved upon, and it came up during the municipal modernization discussion. So we have undertaken that here. We'll do it with planning and through my office and the assistant town manager, and I expect to bring product back to the town council and its subcommittees in the near future. It's a priority for us. Housing is, it's clear. Statewide it is. You know, they're looking at almost 150,000 units they're talking about needing just to satisfy current demand in all categories.
Thank you very much. I think the important issue that you and I have been talking about that needs to continue in its conversation is how do we encourage 1, 2, 3, 4 units at a time. We're not talking about changing the way of our communities or changing the infrastructure needs for those issues. We're talking about encouraging people who have the right kind of property and the right idea about development to produce housing for us, because we're solely behind, and it's really a difficult environment. I've exchanged the story with you several times that 3 of my nieces, all Barnstable gals, all work in Barnstable, but none of them can live in Barnstable because they can't find the housing.
Yes.
And we're just going nowhere quick, and the expense of the services, because they can't live here, just rises, and the whole cost of living changes, and it's a very dire cycle, and we need to bring an end to it. We do have a number of great entrepreneurs, because we're a small business community as usual, and they all own their storefront for some period of time. There may be a way to encourage them to have one apartment added to their storefront. It may work out to be a great investment for them as they retire from their business, and these are the type of people who maybe could be targeted for an easy exchange as well. So I'm excited about that opportunity and giving people the chance to live and enjoy the good quality of life in Barnstable.
Yep. And we look forward to bringing it forward to you.
Thank you.
Yes.
Anybody else on the housing issue? Yes, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mark, you also brought up the intersection of 28 and Yarmouth Road.
Yes.
I just want to be sure that the number of folks that travel from Barnstable Village and travel from Comacould usually use, they go up Willow Street, they go to Yarmouth, and they cross that intersection. That's going to be an horrific kind of situation if that is not really carefully planned, because you have Speedway gas station on one corner, Cam's on the other, the restaurant on one corner, and then as all of those ambulances come down Camp Street. So from a preliminary perspective, as we suspend construction during the summer months, when it's a state project like that, do they also do that, or do they override, or?
They usually ask to extend it as long as they can. We let them do it through close of school, and then they ask to do off-road surface work. And we have typically granted that unless our police, fire, or public works says no. In the particular case of that intersection, it is also a major route for emergency vehicles to the hospital, as is South Street as well.
There's 50 ambulances a day from exit 7.
So you're going to have another dynamic there as well. Now, the fire department does a great job in coordinating much of that, as does our police department, but that's just another consideration there. So whatever work's done, it's going to have to be done very cognizant of not only just traffic and regular circulation as a main route, but also emergency vehicle access.
I just want to make sure we're aware of, because that can turn into a nightmarish
What I'll do is
situation.
I'll ask Director Santos to either himself or through whoever he recommends, give us an update after this, so that you and all those who view can see what's going to happen and what the time frame is. So
Good. It is a major intersection for the
it's a
community,
major
so-
project.
Yeah, thank
Major
you.
project.
This being the third topic that we asked the manager to pause on, that's Willow Street. Do I have any more questions on Willow Street? I have one.
Sure.
We've had discussions about the connecting piece where it comes off double-barreled off the highway, and they're talking about doing something great around the lights, and we got right back to the bottleneck on 2 ends. We asked that they advance the funding for that middle section. They promised us they'd look at it, but I'm not really sure that everybody in Barnstable and everybody using that as a commuter path should endure several stops over several years to make that one street correct. So do you have any idea where we are on trying to build the right road from exit 7 in? One road, one big road.
I don't know that Director Santos has anything additional to what we already know about it. At this point, Dan, do you know how many feet north it goes?
The current?
Yeah.
It's not very far.
No,
it's a few
no,
hundred feet.
we've been at meetings and we've had these discussions with the state that we want the money
Yep.
and we want to straighten the road out. To suggest they're doing any kind of an improvement in our community, making us endure a major dig and then still have a bottleneck on two sides of that, that's the most ridiculous plan I've ever seen.
The Transportation Improvement Plan covers 5 years. The plan we have now is through 2024, and it does not show up on that plan. So unless there's a different or another infusion of funds from somewhere else, it's, from the state's perspective, beyond that time frame.
Do we have any other funds sitting, leaning our way from another project?
Not that I'm aware of. I know that we've been trying to get a grant, in particular for this section, a federal grant, and we will continue to pursue that. And I know that Director Jenkins, and we work with the Cape Cod Commission, have been looking closely at this.
Well, we may have to have an understanding of the true cost to make the connection that they're missing, and maybe have a discussion with all the property owners in that area, and call it our road improvement program like we have for so many other roads. You just can't disturb their business life for 2-3 cycles and think that we're not going to have an effect on them over time. So, yes, Councilor Rapcorsetti.
Speaking about Mass DOT and complete streets, you mentioned Bursa's Way and Route 28, and that project's still ongoing. There's a piece of sidewalk, a new piece of sidewalk on the north side of Route 28 that goes from Bursa's Way to past DPW, and then it ends. No crosswalk. I don't know. I don't even know why it's there. It just seems kind of odd to me. And then there's a sign that says bicyclists can use the full width of the roadway from there on. When we have a bike path on the south side of Route 28, it just seems a little screwed up to me. So I don't know how that got incorporated in the plan, but it just seems a little crazy. So I don't know what's to be done about that, but it's like the sidewalk to nowhere. And when you talk about these transportation improvement plan, I think it's imperative. I'm not sure who sits on that committee that meets at the Cape Cod Commission on a monthly basis. I think it's Dan. Dan still serves on it,
Yes.
but if we can, at those meetings, when we're doing the planning 5 years out, to try to make it, complete and respective of all the businesses and the residents when we're doing large projects like that. It's imperative. It really is, just to bark as much as you can when you have the state sitting in the room at that time. So anyway, it's my gripe.
Thank you.
We actually have dual representation there between the Joint Transportation Committee, which advises the MPO, and so our town engineer historically and our Director of Public Works sit in those capacities. To Councilor Crocker's point, we agree 100% with what he said. Unfortunately, it wasn't viewed that way when it was brought through the JTC MPO, and it focused solely on the intersection. We had actually gone to the point several years ago of trying to get appraisals and agreement from the properties on the west side of Willow Street, so that a taking could be done there so that we could widen it as described. That did not move forward successfully. It got kicked over to other funding sources. We will quantify it, and we will bring it back here, and we will bring back recommended options to coincide with it.
Thank you. Barnstable has to solve Barnstable problems. We know that.
Yep.
Councilor Snip?
Thank you, Mr. President. And Mark, this is back to housing.
Yes.
You had mentioned the desire to streamline the 40B process, and given that the 40B process is supposed to be actually a comprehensive permitting process and is supposed to be a streamlined version, could you give me a sense of what we would like to change to make it even more streamlined?
I will come back with a separate presentation on
Okay.
that. I don't want to kind of go off with little pieces of it. We're actively working. I will bring that back and present it to you.
Okay.
And I'll do it in coordination with our planning director, and it'll probably be Assistant Town Manager Clyburn, since I've tasked him with organizing that.
Okay, thank you.
Yep. Now I have the advantage of being able to talk to the other city managers and mayors about what their vision is as well. So collectively, if it takes, if it takes coordination with state, we may have a little better chance of making some logical modifications. So,
Council Collins?
Just one quick question. Who else serves on the municipal work group? Are there any other Cape
No.
administrators? Only
No.
you from the Cape?
only
Okay.
me.
Yeah.
It's, the city of Lowell was there, Revere was there, it was just Springfield, it was just a mix of some of the larger communities. I was the only town there.
Okay.
It was cities primarily.
That's going to be interesting to
I
see
think
how
that's
they're
how we're
handling their
viewed, though,
problems.
in the
Yeah,
state of Massachusetts,
I
where
agree. Yeah,
in,
no doubt.
in the top dozen communities, because of who we are regionally and because of who we are, within the town.
Thank you.
Yes.
I know this has been a little unusual, so thank you all, and thank you, Mr. Manager, for letting you split us up. Any further questions on county water, on affordability, or on the Willow Street improvements? Hearing none, I return it to your report. Thank you.
Thank you. There is a hearing scheduled at the Cape Cod Commission regarding Chapter H DRI threshold revisions proposed in the Hyannic Economic Center and Hyannis Industrial Service and Trade Area. This is a subcommittee meeting of the Cape Cod Commission. I've put the notice as an attachment, and it's coming up on March 28th. Seeing this, I had been in discussions with Christy Senatori, and I'm going over there tomorrow to talk about several issues, this being one of them, to make sure that what's brought, it hasn't been forwarded to the subcommittee yet. Director Jenkins and I will discuss this, and we'll make sure that, I know this is a priority for us, and we'll make sure that this moves forward in a manner that we believe is appropriate. So I just want to let you know that's coming up. Town of Barnstable, this is a reminder, I had said this at the last meeting, Town of Barnstable is hosting a community planning event on March 29th from 9 to 4:30 to explore how we are impacted by natural hazards and to develop a comprehensive strategy to reduce potential risk, improve our ability to recover quickly after major hazard events, and improve our overall resilience. Through the municipal vulnerability preparedness process, the participants will explore current and future vulnerabilities in our infrastructure, community, and environment resulting from natural hazards and changing climate conditions, and develop and prioritize municipal and community response actions. During the MVP workshop, participants will work with local and regional leaders to characterize hazards facing the community, identify community vulnerabilities and hazards, identify and prioritize potential community actions, and determine overall priority actions for the community. This workshop is a product of the town of Barnstable's participation in the Commonwealth's Municipal Vulnerability Preparedness Program and provides support for towns in Massachusetts to plan for and implement projects that mitigate the impacts of climate change and natural hazards. Communities that complete the MVP program become certified as MVP communities and are eligible for state grant funding and other opportunities. You can go on our planning and development website and sign up for this particular workshop, or you can call us at 862-4678. You can also access it on the Cape Cod Commission story map and see what's going on with this climate resilience efforts. Excuse me, sorry. This also came up on Tuesday. The Lieutenant Governor was sharing with us that the state is looking for us to complete these and that they are are looking at a revenue source, once you have completed this, to put toward capital project investment. So it could pay off very quickly for us to have gone through this process in this community. And I can only encourage our residents, just to, if you're within sight of the ocean, you should consider in some way looking into this. Whether you can take a day or not, I don't know. That's not always available to everybody. But please look on the websites, because this, in our lifetimes, could very well impact us. We're already seeing it in discussions on the north side and out on Sandy Neck between the Barnstable and Sandwich. So keep an eye on this. Finally, for my presentation, and then we'll allow Director of Senior Services Madeline Noonan to come up. Dan Santos and I are going to give you an update on the Comprehensive Water Management Plan. I had told you that we will come up once every month at your second meeting and give an update. I do want to say that on Tuesday, we will have a meeting of the group that I had said that I had asked leadership to allow us to convene with my staff and leadership. So we will be meeting to discuss the status of this with a specific interest in financing. So Director Milne will be with us to continue that discussion. I also told you, and I included in your package, the letter from the wastewater collaborative relevant to the Bureau of Municipal Facilities at DEP that basically found our clean water projects, all of our submittals, to be eligible. And within that, you'll see the Addicks Way sewer expansion. Now, we haven't brought that forward as a CIP because we want to have a discussion and bring that forward to be able to clearly describe how we will fund that project. Meaning, are there betterments? Are we doing system development charges? Are we utilizing some other funding mechanism? And there are multiple. We wanted to be clear on that because we didn't want to make any assumptions going into it. I don't think that's a way to bring forward multi-million-dollar infrastructure. And I know that our leadership wants to be clear on that, as well as I'm sure the council and our public does. So we'll be moving forward with that. We're moving well within DEP. Relevant to comprehensive water management planning, which I'll turn over now to Director Santos, as well as funding. And we've got some other decisions within the CIP and soon to be brought forward. The Addicks has to come forward for approval by the end of this fiscal year, or else we will lose our eligibility under the SRF for this round. We can apply again next year, but
Thank you, Mr. Manager. And Mr.
Yes.
Manager, I would ask if any of the councilors have any questions on the last couple of presentations. Yes, Councilor Snep.
Thank you. Is there any possibility to videotape part of the community planning event on the 29th? I know it would be hard to do the whole thing, but
I'll ask Elizabeth
some
Jenkins to come
thank
up.
you.
She's coordinating this for us.
Good evening, Elizabeth Jenkins, Director of Planning and Development. So we had our prep meeting yesterday, and we did talk about videotaping the introduction, at least. It's going to be sort of a hands-on working group, but we'll start out by sort of explaining as a large group, you know, the intention of the effort and get some background on some of the science behind how climate is impacting Cape Cod. So we will definitely videotape that and make that available. And I will say, for people who aren't available, I mean, a full day is certainly a really big commitment. It will be followed by a public listening session that will provide the results of the day. So if you're not able to come all day, you're still sort of interested in learning about the effort and the initiatives that people brought up, there will be a follow-up and much shorter in time commitment public listening session that'll be available to everyone. So we'll make sure to let folks know when that is. And, you know, I do appreciate, and was just sort of thinking as the town manager was giving a presentation, partnering with this effort, we're also going to be updating our multi-hazard mitigation plan. So that'll be another great opportunity for folks to to give public comment. Again, if they're not sort of available for that full day presentation, but they'll have the benefit of the results of that workshop, the results of the sort of study and analysis that go into the initial preparation of the hazard plan, and then can submit comments in that forum too. So there'll be a number of avenues for public comment coming forward. You're welcome.
Thank you, Director. Any other questions? Yes, Mr. Vice President.
Yes, thank you, Mr. President. Just two quick questions. The first on the Chapter H hearing, that's going to raise the square footage. Does that ultimately have to be approved by the Assembly of Delegates, or is that just the commission itself?
I believe it's the full commission, but Director Jenkins.
That's my understanding, so I'm not sort of an expert in commission process, but when you read through the Chapter H, regulation, it does establish the subcommittee process, the full commission process, and then recording of the decision. So I do not believe it has to be.
It's not the
approved by-
Assembly then?
I do not believe it has to be approved by the Assembly, but I will, we
Could
can
you
double check and
confirm that?
verify
Thank you.
Yeah.
And secondly, relative to this Climate Resiliency Day, I mean, we have a case study already done, completed, i.e. the storms that we had last winter down in Precinct 1 area, along Millway, along Blish Point, Commerce Road, with a culvert sort of a semi-collapsed. Is there, I think, Town Manager Els, you mentioned that there might be some monies available for projects that come out of this report. If there are monies available, I mean, we should stand ready to, A, replace that culvert, and there are some grant monies that I think I shared with you at our meeting on Tuesday that are now currently available to look at culverts across the state where we can apply for those kinds of fundings to help alleviate, if you will, rising tides and rising ocean, and how that so negatively impacted Millway and parts of Commerce and, parts of First and Second streets down in the Millway area. So, I applaud the fact that we're doing this, but from an historical perspective, we've already done it, so we should have a plan in place to correct this ASAP.
And I think it's, it's important to remember as we go into this that we're not strangers to sort of hazard planning here in the town of Barnstable. We're not looking to start fresh. This has been an effort where we've worked very closely with DPW and Marine and Environmental Affairs to identify those sort of existing lists of priority projects to integrate into this process. But completing this planning process, completing that multi-hazard mitigation plan does solidify our eligibility for that funding and a significant amount of state funding that's been made available to address these resiliency
So I would ask the
projects.
monies that we have spent on the Woods Hole report, the engineering report that we recently received this past February, there's an outline and a plan in terms of how to mitigate those water-related kinds of dangerous results of storms. Are we ready to implement any of those solutions that have been suggested?
I'll go back and look. It was my recollection that the culvert improvement project did not show change to the particular issue.
It did. It suggested that if it were just a typical traditional storm, that the culvert can handle, if you will, the flow of that water. But if it is a storm like we had this past year,
Yes,
that it can't. So
okay,
it's obviously an issue.
yes. But we're pursuing any and all grants that exist. The grant funding that I referred to is future. So it is not in place now. The Lieutenant Governor was referring to putting in place a new funding source to be able to fund recommendations that come out of communities who have done this municipal vulnerability preparedness process, and then come forward with requests for asset capital improvement. Once they've gone through this, then they would be eligible for consideration.
Thank you. We always talk about being shovel-ready. This is one that we should be shovel-ready
Yeah, the
for.
grant that you had identified for the culvert work, I don't know if we're eligible for that money, but we are pursuing it.
Thank you.
Yep.
Ready, Mr. Manager?
Okay,
for the
back
next
to Dan
phase?
Santos, so he
Yes.
can he's gonna give you the detailed update on the comprehensive water management plan.
Thank you, Mr. Manager.
Got my clicker.
You didn't break it, did you?
Hello again, Dan Santos, Director of Public Works. So I'm intending to give a brief update on our wastewater planning efforts. And what you'll see is basically a discussion about the comprehensive wastewater management plan. And you've heard a lot about that, but what comprises that? So I want to, just so you understand that, what goes into a comprehensive wastewater management plan, basically by looking at the table of contents, which is very helpful at understanding that. I'll brief you on the activities since January, when I briefed in early January in great detail on the project. And then we'll talk about, and I'll have a handout that you can take home on the schedule. Let's see if this works. Oh, come on. She said it would work. Okay, so the comprehensive wastewater management plan, now the town has had, as the manager briefed at the last time he briefed, was we've had a plan. We've had a plan for many years. And the activities that we've undertaken over the last 4 years have been to basically update that plan. And that will result in the compilation of the comprehensive wastewater management plan, which will be submitted to DEP in the fall, and then that will be the basis for the activities that we will proceed with over the next 60 years. So obviously an introduction which talks about why we're doing the comprehensive wastewater management plan. I don't think we need to spend a lot of time on that. One of the most significant aspects, well, there are two of the document. There's the needs assessment or needs analysis, and then the plan itself. So how are you going to meet the objectives that were identified in the needs? Now, one of the things that we're doing, which is very important, is to take advantage of all the work that we've done over the years and use as much of that as possible. So you'll see the summary of the 2011 was the last needs assessment. Well, basically that probably went 90% of the way of what the needs are in the town. So that's incorporated automatically. That's a big chunk of the work of the comprehensive water management plan that's done by having that work done. So what we did, or have been doing, and in particular with the Water Resources Advisory Committee, was to update that needs assessment. And that looks at all of the environmental issues in particular, but all the issues that identify needs. So it's water quality, surface water quality for ponds, for estuaries, storm water, looking at septic issues, public health issues, variances, all of the issues that go into why you need to make wastewater plans. And that would include also issues such as protecting drinking water supplies and where we co-locating or not co-locating those particular things. Habitats, flood zones, velocity zones. So there's a myriad interests that are considered in the wastewater management planning. And the result of all that is the needs assessment, needs analysis, which drives you to where you need to satisfy those needs with the ultimate plan. Another aspects of the update, including looking at our wastewater treatment and collection system. So what have we done in the last 10 years, or since 2011 at a minimum, with our collection and wastewater treatment system? So we've done a number of things there. So we've looked at, we've done a bio-wind model, which looks at the actual optimizing the operation of the plant. We've rehabilitated clarifiers there. We've replaced standby generators. We've done a solids handling evaluation and effluent flow metering installation. In the collection system, we've done a sewer CAD model, which allows us to have a computer model algorithm to look at our entire collection system to know where we have issues or where we need to expand in the future for growth. We've done a pump station evaluation summary. We've done a infiltration analysis of groundwater or water that may be entering our system that we're treating that takes up capacity. So that's something that's important to do. You want to minimize that. And then we also want to look at projects that we have underway as part of the needs assessment. And things that were completed since 2011 or that are underway include the Stewart's Creek expansion, intermunicipal agreement that we have with the towns of Sandwich and Mashpee, we actually have in place. We've also talked separately with Sandwich regarding our Barnstable Harbor watershed, and we also have met and continue to work with the town of Yarmouth. Yarmouth has a grant that they're working with us very closely on for intermunicipal relationship on what opportunities might be available to address our Lewis Bay watershed issues. As we've talked about in the past, our alternatives, what is our alternatives approach? And we've spent a lot of time out in the Marston's Mills River and the Mill Pond area where we're proceeding with trying to do a dredging project there, which will reduce the nitrogen in that system, looking at potential for aquaculture, for alternative septic systems, alternative stormwater treatment systems. We've got grants. We've got well over $500,000 in grants in the last 2 years to upgrade both existing stormwater systems and to do some new alternative type best management practices on stormwater. And then finally, our traditional approaches include the projects that you've funded over the last several years for capital projects in wastewater, and that includes the Pleasant Street area, the growth incentive zone area, looking at that. Addicks Lane, the manager mentioned when he was speaking about expanding the sewer there in the vicinity of the Cape Cod 5 new headquarters, where they've actually installed a pump station at their expense that we'll take over and use for our operation to expand sewer in that area. Finney's Lane, Long Pond, we have either conceptual design underway or planning underway for these programs. Old Yarmouth Road, we funded recently with your efforts the Marston's Mills wastewater treatment facility transition to a pump station. Kids Hill Sewer expansion through the MassWorks grant, and then finally the Katuitt Sewering evaluation that's being in conjunction with Joint Base Cape Cod investigation that we have undergoing as well. Next. So once that needs assessment, and that's the biggest part of this really is just painting a picture of what's going on in Barnstable with all of our environmental development and all the needs that you want to look at with wastewater, and then how do we solve those problems. So one of the ways that we look at is what technology alternatives are available. And here's another example where we're using pre-existing work. The Cape Cod Commission did the 208 program several years ago, and that's still ongoing. But as part of that, they developed a 208 plan, and in that is basically the alternatives alternative technologies analysis. So we'll be incorporating that work into our plan, which looks at all the various alternatives for managing wastewater, particularly in the on-site systems. So the formulation and development of the recommended plan, that's basically goes through our process whereby the town council appointed the Water Resources Advisory Committee, and the work that committee went through up until about 1.5 years ago, and came up with ultimately a plan which we are working from now, and which we incorporated as fully into the comprehensive wastewater management plan. The recommended plan will be the plan that I've briefed here in graphics. So what the RAC work did was basically a lot of GIS-based graphical work, and that depicts the plan. And then the other part of that, obviously, is phasing. The DEP wants to see over what time period, and ultimately how we're going to meet the regulatory requirements. In this case, the regulatory requirement specifically is meeting water quality standards in our estuaries. Now, we all know there are many other standards and things we're trying to do, but that's really the regulatory piece that DEP is driving to, is meeting those water quality standards in the coastal water resources. And then finally, the recommended plan, because of 208, has to be consistent with 208. So the Cape Cod Commission we'll review that. But we will be pointing out in this document how we are consistent with the 208 plan. And then the final three here, implementation plan and schedule. That's how we propose to implement the phasing that we have, the 3 20-year phases over 60 years, what the approach will be, capital projects, the financial plan. That's a very important part of the comprehensive wastewater management plan, has to be included. And as the manager said, put together a committee, which will be starting next week. Tuesday, I think, is the first meeting to start wrestling with some of those financial plan issues. And then finally, the environmental impact analysis, which is another requirement of the plan, looking at what the environmental impacts are of our comprehensive wastewater management plan. And those generally are positive impacts. This is not where we're looking at identifying negative impacts, but the whole point of this is to improve our environment. And then finally, there'll be some monitoring plan as part of that and adaptive management planning. So the schedule, and I'm going to hand this out because I know that's not going to be easy to read. Yeah, we don't. This is for you to take home. There's not a, just so you have it. So this is how we are managing this program and how we're managing to implement getting the comprehensive wastewater management plan in the hands of DEP ultimately in the fall. So we put together a schedule. This is sometimes called a Gantt chart, but it's basically a schedule of all the activities and when they're going to take place. There's a short version, which is the one I have up on the screen, which are the major areas that we're looking at. And the longer version just breaks that down into more detail. So this allows me and my staff to manage our contractors and consultants and my own staff and to keep things on track so that we meet the dates that we've promised to you and that we continue to feel are very obtainable. And you can see most of this here is actually in the section 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. That's actually writing the plan, and that's what we're spending most of our time doing because the work on the needs analysis and all the investigative work and that analysis has been completed. One of the other important parts is because DEP has provided standards for the water quality in our estuaries through the TMDLs, we have to prove that our plan will meet them. And so there's the modeling approach. So we basically take our plan and have SMAS at UMass Dartmouth. They will then put into their model our plan and see if it meets the TMDL from a modeling standpoint. And then ultimately, the monitoring over the entire plan, once we prove that from a modeling perspective it'll work, then there's long-term monitoring to make sure it actually is working in fact. So as far as the process of submission, so we're talking about getting this to DEP in the fall. Well, there's really three. There's the town council review, submission and review, and we have this on the schedule in September. Cape Cod Commission, now that's the 208 consistency review. We also see that occurring in September. And then in November, it will be MEPA, which is the ENF that we have to submit, but that will be submitted at the same time as the DEP draft final in November. And we've been working very closely both with the Cape Cod Commission and DEP. The DEP has reviewed our table of contents. They've reviewed our approach. So we want to understand early on in this approach whether there's anything that we're missing or something they want us to look more specifically at. They've given us very minimal comments. So what I've presented to you tonight, they've seen, they've bought into, and so we're marching ahead squarely with that. So, and let me just touch on, if you want to switch. So what have we done since January towards meeting these goals? And I'll quickly go through this. So the Comprehensive Water Management Plan development, which I've been talking about for the last few minutes, we've got Section 1 drafted. We've met with DEP, Cape Cod Commission, and MEPA officials, as I just mentioned, to make sure we're on the right track. and understand the submission requirements. We met with UMass Dartmouth regarding the model submission requirements. We've just got their proposal in to do that work, and they're on track for doing that work this spring. We continue our public outreach, and we've spoken to the Hyannis Village Association, and we will continue to, Hyannis Civic Association, I think it is, right? And we will continue as any party is interested to have us come and brief the program and the plan. We will come to anywhere, civic associations, churches, Boy Scouts, whoever wants to listen. We want to make sure anyone who's interested in this that we provide briefing. Working on Mill Pond and the Marston's Mills River, we have contracted for additional DEP required sampling, and this is the sediments. They've required more sediment sampling so they can be comfortable with ultimately what we do with that material once it's dredged. We've also been required to have an archaeological study there, so that work has been contracted for and is underway. We've briefed you previously on the Joint Base Cape Cod, and we've worked with the communities that are involved in that program there to potentially utilize the wastewater treatment plant at Joint Base Cape Cod, either the existing one and or the existing disposal beds and or even a new plant there. Those conversations are continuing, and in fact, we just contracted with a consultant that is looking specifically at all of the technical details with the plant there, with the disposal capacity, whether or not this is an option or opportunity that Barnstable can take advantage of, particularly with the concern we have over effluent disposal within our own town boundaries. And then finally, Vineyard Wind has provided really an opportunity for us to get a lot of sewer in the road at a great cost savings because they're opening up the road. We're working with their designers with our requirements, so we'll have one designer, one contractor to make sure this is done efficiently and effectively, and they're on a very fast-track schedule, and that allows us to take advantage of getting some very expensive collection pipe in the road while that project's underway. So those are the things that we've been doing since January, and that completes my briefing, and I'm happy to entertain any questions or comments you may have. Thank you.
I'm looking for questions from the councilors. Any questions? Yes, Councilor Collin.
Actually, a comment. I just wanted to say that Rob Steen did a great job at the Hyannis Civic Association meeting, outlining, although without video. It was very, it was very interesting, but he did a great job explaining the town, and there's been a lot of questions from that group and you know, all groups about how we're moving forward with this. And I think he really laid it out nicely for them, and they have a much better understanding and grasp now. And it was also great to be able to point to the last few presentations that have happened at the town council and to provide those links for clarification. I just think it's super important that we're talking about wastewater and groundwater and all of these things, and that we're doing it all the time so that we can keep people in the loop and they don't feel like the town isn't managing these things. The problem is bigger than the town has capacity for. There isn't the money. They're not planning correctly. All of these things that are concerns when people, quite frankly, don't watch these meetings because they're not action-packed. But thank you very much. I just wanted to say thank you to Rob, too.
Thank you.
Yeah.
We have a great team, and the beauty of keeping it in-house, not having consultants, is my team is living this. They know it intimately, and any one of them, or us, can go out and talk about this. And like you saw Rob do, the slides didn't work right out of his head, and I'm sure it aligned exactly with the slides. So again, we're available easily and at a moment's notice, frankly, at no cost to come out and talk to people about this program.
Yes, Councilor Rapkosety.
Thank you, Dan, for the presentation, and I look forward to our second meetings of the month just to hear all this update. It's exciting for me to see this come to fruition. Do you know how many other towns on the Cape have submitted and have their CWMPs?
I don't know exactly. It's minimal, maybe 2 or 3.
Okay.
It's Chatham.
I know
is-
Chatham,
yeah.
Harwich has it, and Mashpee, I think, does too. So, and speaking of that, we have an intermunicipal agreement with Mashpee. Nothing's been initiated with that group.
That provides a framework for us to work together as we get to the point where we want to do that. So this JBCC may be the perfect opportunity to utilize the framework that's been put together in that IMA.
Okay. And who's the consultant on the JBCC?
Wright Pierce.
Wright Pierce, okay.
And the reason we chose them is because they've been doing the work for mass development and for the other towns. So again, we're taking advantage of all the knowledge they already have and not having to repurchase that.
I think that's smart, very, very good. Value engineering, if you will. So in our packets, I saw that there's a Clean Water Trust. Did you hand this out? I'm not sure who handed, oh, Mark handed it out. Okay. Because I saw on there listed some of the projects you mentioned available for interim financing with the state under the SRF program, and that's interim at 0%, but then it converts to the 2%, but it's something that could be taken advantage of by us, and quite a cost savings when you look at the list, so that's good to hear. And of course, once we have our accepted CWMP, then we'll be eligible for the 0%. What's the time after we submit to DEP and MEPA? What's the estimated time for approval?
Well, the MEPA is they have statutory review, and it's brief, like 30 days kind of review. But the DEP, they're not required, and my guess is they're going to take a while.
A year, or?
I don't think that long, but it's not going to be, it won't be 30 days, but I would say they'd be looking at several months, but I can't really speak for them, but my sense is it's going to be longer than the MEPA review. That's what I anticipate.
All right, great, thank you.
Any other councilors? Yes, Councilor Tinsley.
Thank you very much. I wrote a note here earlier on in your presentation that you mentioned groundwater getting into the system, which can reduce capacity. My concern would be if groundwater can get into the wastewater system, can the wastewater get into the groundwater? So how does that happen, that the groundwater gets into the wastewater system?
Well, sometimes you get cracks in the piping or joints that aren't completely tight, and so you can get inflow that way from groundwater or infiltration. Inflow is another thing. We have illegal connections from downspouts, things that we don't know about that get connected. So we do analyses to identify those things. The good thing is we don't have a lot of infiltration and inflow. We have a low percentage of that. When you have a high percentage, it's a concern because it's costing you money. So then you kind of take an analysis. What's it going to cost to fix those issues versus what capacity you're losing? So we pay a lot of attention to that.
Councilor Hebert.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you very much, Dan. While I'm on the Water Collaborative, the 208 plan and the county, I do keep bringing up that, asking how much support we're getting in a very friendly way from Mass DOT and the MS4, the storm drains on all the state highways that are interconnected, which is a large system throughout the Cape. And everybody kind of smiles at me, but I just say, well, we got to keep working at this all together because the state has an obligation to kind of help us by taking care of their stormwater as much as we do. And so I'm hoping that we keep working together, as I'm sure that you're working with them, so that we get to the bottom of the problem and get it resolved. But thank you.
Any other councilors? Yes, Mr. Vice President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Dan. Great presentation. First, I commend DPW and the number of subcommittees that have been meeting since the RAC committee and committees before that. When I look at the date for submission being really the end of November, I would encourage if there was a way for us to even expedite that sooner as opposed to later, because I think the quicker we get that into the DEP, I think it begs the question that Councilor Rapcorsetti asked. The quicker we get that approved, the better off we'll be short-term, long-term, especially with water mitigation funds eventually being delivered to us through that 2.75% coming through the Airbnb tax, so that if we can have this plan approved, we can have shovel-ready types of projects that we can get funded probably before other communities. So if we
Got it.
can. Thank you.
Any other councilors? Well, oh, I'm sorry. Yes, Councilor
Thank
Snap.
you, Mr. President. Thank you, Dan. I just have kind of a big picture question. Knowing that this plan does range up to 60 years, what level of confidence do we have that that plan will meet the requirements under the Chapter 208 to remove the amount of nitrogen we have to from our groundwater?
I have great confidence. I mean, that was the whole point in that, doing as much as we can, most cost-effectively as possible to meet those standards.
Okay.
Any other councilors? I'll take a shot myself. How are you?
Great.
Great. Looking
Never
forward to
better.
seeing you 7:30 Tuesday morning for our committee kickoff. Yes. Good to know. We got a PhD on the committee, and he can write like a son of a gun, so we're going to really push him because he's pushing all of us. My real question is, you and I have dissected the Mashpee plan, and we've looked at the issues there. And they opened their plan in 2015. They failed to make any of the phases since they've opened. And they backloaded their plan with appendices that suggested that the plan was really going to fail from the get-go because they relied far too much on shellfish. How does Barnstable avoid the pitfalls that Mashpee fell into while Mashpee still got their plan approved? We don't want a phony plan approved. We want a real plan approved.
Well,
How do we, and I know a lot of these answers, so I'm actually asking you to bring it forward again for everybody here. How do we ensure that what we advance will meet mustard? We know Mashpee's met mustard and they didn't meet a step of the process, and we know their appendix wasn't legit. So how do we do better? What's our benchmark?
We're already doing better because we've got a tremendous amount of work that we've done and we have ongoing and work that you've funded, which is far and above
what they were
not doing anything. And I'm not going to criticize them, but the fact is,
I will
yeah,
for you. Don't worry.
But the fact is, we have already made tremendous inroads into the plan we have. And we will continue that with your support. We'll keep getting the work done, and we'll keep bringing the projects forward, and hopefully you keep approving them. And I think that will be evident to DEP, and it already is, because again, we talk to them constantly about what we're doing, so they know where we're at, and they know what's coming. And I really don't see any pitfalls at all in us being able to implement our plan.
Well, I've had pointed discussions with a particular selectman in Mashpee, and I made it known that I've read their plan and that they failed at every step of the way, and I won't let that happen to me. So I have to tell you, as one of the committee members, we're going to be looking for some accountability. We're going to be looking for a good, solid plan that we know has legs and has the best interest of Barnstable in mind. Thank you.
Yes,
I
sir.
appreciate working with you.
Yes, sir.
Oh, hey, we got Mr. Manager. Mark.
Thank you. Mark Ellis, Town Manager. To follow along that line of discussion, we'll be bringing forward a real plan that we can implement with your support and community support. And I don't know what other communities choose to do. We wouldn't bring you a plan in any of the areas you task us that we didn't believe was something that we could move forward in a reasonable manner and get to the outcomes that are the priorities for our community. So that's, I think, from a practical standpoint.
No,
and
that's the way you approach everything, so I'm very grateful for that.
Yes.
But what you and I both know is we had a particular selectman bang his chest, thump his heart, and say, "We're there, why aren't you?" And then when we did the homework to look at how can we use them to assist us to get there, it was nothing but phony baloney, right? So we know that's the case. Well, now we can't use them to assist us. So now we're on our own, and Barnstable's going to solve Barnstable problems. So I look forward to working with you on this.
we're ready to go.
Yes, I know we are. Thank you.
Tuesday morning.
Would you like to introduce one of you?
That's right. Now the feature presentation. Thank you for the opportunity to have Madeline Noonan, Director of our Senior Services here, and I'll let Madeline take over.
Thank you, Mark. This is where things start to get exciting, right? I'm very pleased to be with you all tonight. It's a pleasure to be here. Mr. President, members of the Town Council, I'm very pleased that we had the former chair of our Friends of the Barnstable Council on Aging, Gary Sylvester, along with John Jobe, who spoke, former president and now vice president of the Council on Aging. And really that just shows the support. This has been a process that's been going on, as Councillor Flores indicated, a number of years. And I am going to now attempt to condense this into about a 10-minute presentation and hopefully provide you some background on why we are here today where we are. So believe it or not, this June, the Barnstable Senior Centre will celebrate 20 years from when we first opened our doors to the community. And in that time, we're immensely proud of the work that we've done to improve the quality of life for older people in our community, to help keep them engaged and to promote connection across all generations. We really do see ourselves, as you can see from these photographs, that really, I think, emulate what happens at the Senior Centre every day. It's a very vibrant place, and we really do strive and endeavour to be a welcoming place for all. Over the last couple of years, as we've approached this milestone anniversary, the boards, my staff, along with broad participation from the community, have really been trying to create a future vision and really taking this opportunity to look at how we want to be going into the future. As we opened 20 years ago, now 20 years on, we're looking at a whole new generation of older adults in our community. And we really want to make sure that we're envisioning a place where the focus is on the experience and not so much on people's age. One of the things that's really difficult at the Senior Centre is to define precisely what we do, because we do so many things, which is one of our strengths. And as you can see from this little word ball, this was a project that we did a couple of years ago where we asked participants to tell us what the Senior Centre meant to them in one word. And so we got a lot of different responses, the most notable of which was friendship and connection, and that really, I think, really overarches everything that we do. We're a place where people can come and connect, reducing social isolation in our community, and also a place where people can engage in lifelong learning. They can, pursue creative interests. We're also the front door for people to access aging services and caregiver services. I actually just got a phone call today from a man that actually Lynn Poyant, our community services director, and I spoke with last week at our St. Patrick's Day luncheon, who was raving about our Senior Centre, and he's not a town resident. He comes from Mashpee. He is taking currently ukulele classes and tin whistle classes, and it was really interesting for Lynn to hear him speak, because what he talked about was our Senior Centre, the depth of programs and services that we offer is really appealing to people from other communities. We had an email a couple of weeks ago from a Yarmouth resident who said that wanted to know if they could come to our centre because our programs were superior to what they had in their community. And just the other day I had a town resident who has to move to Sandwich to care for her daughter who has a disability, and she wanted to make sure that she could continue to come to the Senior Centre because it's her happy place. So that really, I think, shows the impact that we have in our community. But that being said, Senior Centres are dealing with a little bit of a identity crisis. I see some of you on the council are members of the baby boomer generation, and that's largely driving this need for us to evolve and change. And so just to illustrate that, our logo actually says right on it, next to Barnstable Senior Centre, programs and services for the 50-plus community. Those two are kind of incongruous in many ways, and that's a challenge for us, because if you look here, this is my friend Suzanne, who's 50, loves the Senior Centre. We're serving from 50 all the way up to Dorothy Robinson, who is our town's oldest resident. She turned 106 in January. Has been a very active participant at the Senior Centre for the last number of years, participating in our day program. And so that creates a challenge, because when we look at that age span, that is 4 distinct generations. And when we ask people what is the appropriate term to refer to a person over 50, the response that we get is not senior or elder, it's adult or older adult. So looking at this, these quotes, you you would see the existential crisis that we see ourselves in, along with senior centres all over the country, that are all grappling with how do we continue to meet the needs of our current older participants that are the typical senior centre age of 75 and over, while trying to appeal to and engage with the emerging generation who, as baby boomers, do not identify with the term senior. This is Parks and Rec Business Magazine from a couple of years ago. They did a whole issue on this, and it was about losing the senior centre stereotype, how to get baby boomers in the door and increase revenue. We've also had some of the leading voices on aging across the country weigh in on this issue, talking about if senior centres don't innovate, we risk extinction. And so this is an opportunity. We don't want to look at it as a challenge that we cannot overcome and look at creative ways around. So there is an opportunity here, and we have done a lot of work into this. You may have seen just in the last couple of weeks, the Boston Globe has actually done 2 stories on this very issue, the last of which was talking about the word senior and how it's radioactive for many people. The New York Times and the Wall Street Journal, Forbes magazine have all covered this as well. And if you just look at this image, it really illustrates. I have my activity coordinator, Susan Griffin, is here tonight. Susan and I hear this along with our staff all too commonly about people in the community that we say, come to the senior center, and we hear I'm not old enough to go to the senior center. And however, they are well above the typical age. We had a member of the school department staff a couple of months ago come in because she was very concerned. She's a caregiver for her aging parents that are in their late 80s. She had a daughter that had a significant medical issue out of state that she wanted to be with, so that's sandwich generation. But she wanted to make sure that she connected her parents up to some supportive services. And when she came in to inquire, we said, sure, bring them in and we'll show them around and tell them what we got going on. And she said they're sitting in the car in the parking lot and they will not come in the door. So, we hear a lot from people, why are you so, concerned about the needs of the baby boomers? But it's not just that. We have people that are considered, eligible senior center participants that refuse to come to the senior center. And there's so much to offer. As you see from the pictures, it's such a vibrant place. Getting them in the door is our challenge. So this quote is very interesting because it talks about the need for senior centers to continue to thrive. It will not happen by accident. We need to change our approach, which I'm very proud at the Barnstable Senior Center. We have been very proactive in the last number of years. Thanks to your support, we were able to expand our programming hours into the evening. We've looked at new ways of marketing. We've kept up with the aesthetics in the building. It's a very beautiful building. We're very proud of it. And so for us, we want to make sure that we're keeping ahead of things. And it's really incumbent upon us at this point to move forward. Because looking at this list of things that we've done, we have done everything but change the name of the facility at this point. So just to give you a little background in terms of this conversation, it's not a new conversation. Back as far as 2004, when the senior center was only about 5 years old, we had a group of Suffolk University public relations graduates that came in at our request and did a marketing project. And they recommended at that time removing the word senior and calling it just simply the Barnstable Center. And then in 2006, when we introduced the logo that we're using currently, it was decided at that time to add in it very intentionally programs and services for the 50-plus community as a tagline, and then at some point to revisit the name change. So things really started to kick in during 2015 when we did our year-long needs assessment with UMass Boston's Gerontology Institute. We actually had a boomer focus group, and we heard it was a repeated theme that kept recurring was the need to rebrand the senior center. And we also had done some visioning sessions after that where that was continued. 2018, last year, was really when we sort of hit that mass for us. We did a town-wide survey. It went out on all of the census forms. We wanted to make sure that we were casting a wide net, that everybody in the community had a say in this. And amazingly for us, we got almost 2,000 responses. It really was overwhelming, and we learned a lot. I think we had, when we put everything in, we had about 55 pages of open-ended comments that people shared with us. And we had about 60% of respondents that supported a name change. When we wanted to go a little bit more in-depth, in September, we hosted 2 community listening sessions. We had about 150 people participate. We did one in the morning, one in the evening, so we could make sure, our timing was right for people that couldn't come in during the day. And we did some live polling. And at that, over those 2 sessions, over 80% of the participants supported a name change, and only 6% were opposed to it. And about 13% neutral. So to us, that was clearly a mandate for us to move forward with this. And we do feel as we approach our 20th anniversary, it's the optimal opportunity for us to do this. So our work has also, well, looking at the 2015 needs assessment, these were just some of the comments that we had received, which I think are just very telling. You know, people saying that if you're a 50-plus center, you really need to change the name senior center, and repackaging our efforts as community rather than senior focused. And also, really interesting comment, the difference between a 50-year-old and a 90-year-old can be an entire lifetime, and we cannot meet the needs of that group as just looking at sort of in a homogenous way. And also the need to reduce stigma and be inclusive. And then in the community survey, this comment at the top said it all. Senior is a discriminating and archaic identification for individuals over 60. And this was from somebody who was 75, who had a 96-year-old mother, and neither of them think of themselves as senior. The one that I particularly loved, it really resonated, and we hear this from a lot of people, is, you know, people really want to see a place where people of all ages can come together and not isolating older people and separating them from the rest of our community. It is important to have friends in all generations. And, you know, so for us, this was sort of our guide. And then moving on to that, we were heavily influenced and informed by a study called Reframing Aging that was commissioned by the 8 leading agencies on aging in the United States, including AARP, the National Council on Aging that represents the 11,000 senior centers across the country, the American Society on Aging, looking at this huge demographic shift with people living longer. It was really necessitating a change in how we refer to older people and the language that we use to help create better public awareness of older people, their needs, and also their contributions to society. So instead of looking at older people as a burden on our community, that in our nation that's costing more money, to look at the potential there and look at it from an asset-based approach. So specifically, they did a lot of research into language. They tested words, asked people of different generations all across the country, when you think of words like senior and elder, what comes to mind? And unfortunately, they were seen to be very, very stereotypical. You know, sort of the perception was that older people are people that are weak, that are in decline, that have mental deterioration and physical deterioration. We know at the senior center, you walk through our doors, that couldn't be further from the truth. So we have been making a very intentional effort to reduce and sort of minimize the use of the word seniors and focus more on what they recommend, which was using older adults, older people. And after all, we're all just people. None of us want to be labeled. So what are other senior centers across the country doing? This will give you a sense of some centers, some communities that have changed their names. You know, I like to look at this and see there's something going on with mountains here. I think it's like aging is a journey to the top of the mountain, which I think is a great thing. But there's no mountains on Cape Cod, so that's not going to work for us. So, but looking at what would be an appropriate name for us, we did a lot of work into this, as Councillor Flores mentioned. And what was really interesting, Plymouth recently changed over to the Centre for Active Living. And we asked people about that. A lot of people liked it. They felt it was very dynamic. But we had some people that felt it was a little more focused if you were physically active, if people had any kind of mobility issues, that it wouldn't really appeal to them. The City of Boston actually just rebranded what was formerly the Boston Commission for the Affairs of the Elderly to the Age Strong Commission, which is wonderful. It's very empowering, but Boston owns the whole, you know, strong word. So we wanted to find something that was really unique to Barnstable and the right fit for our community. So this is an example of what happened. We had asked people in the survey to give us their own suggestions. And when we put them into a word cloud generator, it showed the most frequently used words, gave us the Barnstable Adult Community Center. And that was what, independently of that, we had a number of people bring that up. So for us, we felt it really aligns nicely with the Hyannis Youth and Community Center, and it really shows the town's commitment to ensuring that we're promoting social and recreational programs across the lifespan. And what we've been asking people as well is telling us this is a little project that we have going on right now. We love to do little creative things at the Senior Center and get people to tell us, you know, the impact that we have. So we've been asking people to write how the Senior Center helps them to thrive. And one of note, if you see the big leaf, it says classes after 5 p.m., hooray. I wanted that to make all of you feel really good, and our town manager, Mark Ells, for moving this forward to help us grow into our evening space and again, help us really realize our full potential. And so we want to be a center Centre for Active Living. We want to be the Barnstable Adult Community Centre. In fact, we have people coming and telling us they're already calling us that because they think this has already happened, that they're so excited about it. And I'm also really proud to share with you that, you know, as a complement to what we're doing with the rebranding, we are also seeking formal entry into the World Health Organization's global network of age-friendly cities and communities. And this has really been driven by a regional collaboration that we have going on with all the 15 towns on the Cape. About a year ago, our town manager signed off on a commitment letter along with the town managers and administrators from all the other towns, agreeing to work with Barnstable County. Their Human Services Department is leading this effort. We're in the assessment phase right now. But there's no reason why, as our own community, we should not be. A lot of what we're doing is age-friendly work, and we really want to delve more deeply into that. And we'll be joining about 800 other communities across the globe, across every continent, with a commitment to ensuring that our community is a great place to grow up and grow old. And the strength of age-friendly communities is they're not just great for older people, but an age-friendly community is a place that's great for everybody. And it really is a win-win situation for all of us. And so just this last slide, we aspire to be an age-friendly community for all residents, regardless of age. We're already on that trajectory. We have so much to be proud of. This is just some pictures, recent intergenerational events that we've had at the Senior Centre. And this, I think, is really one of the most gratifying things that we get to do, is to see the connection that happens between generations when we bring them together. So I wanted to share that with you. And also, I hope I'm not singling out Councillor Levesque, but this is his son, Connor, on the slide on the bottom left. He is a junior at Barnstable High School. We're doing this wonderful intergenerational storytelling project where we've brought the students together with some older people in our community, many of whom live alone, don't have family, never married, don't have children, and are very isolated in our community. And we felt this was a wonderful way for them to connect and learn from each other. And we've had a great a couple of meetings, and we're actually putting together a little documentary that we'll be screening in a couple of months as part of our anniversary celebration. So with that, I just want to let you know, please save the date for June 21st. That's going to be our 20th anniversary celebration. And we hope that you will all join us. You'll be getting formal invites in the mail soon. So I am happy, thank you for your time. I'm happy to take any questions that anyone may have at this time.
Councilors, any questions? Yes, Councilor Beaton-Bender.
Hi, no questions. I just want to say this is great. I have an 86-year-old father who absolutely refuses to go to the Senior Center because he said there are a bunch of old people there. In the meantime, I'd love to learn how to play the ukulele, so.
It's the thing right now. We're very proud of it.
And there is something, you know, you realize that you've aged out of the Cape Cod Young Professionals group, and now you've morphed into that next generation, and so I really think that you're spot on, because there is definitely, there is that barrier, that's sort of that psychological barrier for anyone at any age. So thank you. I think it's an excellent effort, and I'm really excited to see what you guys are doing down there. And thank you so much for having stuff after 5 p.m. because that is one of my big gripes on the Cape.
I can't tell you how happy we are about that.
You know, it's for those of us who are still working, it's, you know, you see all these great things happening and you can never take advantage of it. It's quite frustrating. So good for you. Excellent work. Excellent job. Good luck going forward, and we look forward to supporting you on this.
Thank you so much. And just to follow up, the gentleman that I spoke to from Mashpee today, the reason he called me, because he's been thinking for the past week since we spoke about, there's got to be another name for this place. He didn't realize what our plans were. And he was really focused on the campus, because he said, I feel like I'm going to junior college when I come to the Senior Centre. And you're co-located with the high school and the intermediate school. And why not make it like the Barnstable Centre for Lifelong Learning campus or something along those lines? You know, and it's great. No stress about getting good grades. You're not trying to get into college. You're just trying to enjoy life and enjoy the time that we've been blessed with, you know?
Any other councilors? Yes, Councilor Levesque.
Thank you. Just to comment on what you said with Connor, he, you know, a lot of these kids, and I just think anybody who gets involved, it isn't so much about the people, the older people that are there. It's what the younger people are able to learn through that. And I think as much as the gentleman, Mr. Elliott, that Connor met with, as much as he was blessed by it, Connor was actually probably blessed a little bit more, just because he realized he can make such an impact at a young age with with another person. So thank you for offering that opportunity.
Thank you. And as you know, Mr. Elliot Lovell, he followed up with me the very next day to tell me how meaningful it was, and Connor had brought some chocolates, and I mean, just little gestures like that go such a long way. So thank you.
Yes.
This is great, Maddie, and I'm excited to hear that you're pursuing the age-friendly community. I know that Yarmouth has done that, and
Yes.
we would be second up, right?
Absolutely.
Any restrictions on how young you can be?
On how, sorry?
How young you can be to take advantage of the programming?
So we were sensitive to what we heard from some of the responses we got from the survey were from people who just felt like, well, the senior center is our place and we don't want to share it, and it's their little, some people like being separate from everybody else, but not everyone. So, in learning what other centers had done, we felt the best approach was to maintain it as a 50-plus center during the day. But taking the word senior will, appeal to a lot more people to come in, and then open our evening programs up to adults of all ages. So we think that's the right spot for now. That's not to say that in the future it might not change, but we wanted to, change sometimes can be a little difficult for people. So we felt if we kind of incrementally and very purposefully, kind of move it forward, this was the right way to do it now, to get the buy-in and investment from the community.
Has there been any consideration to link the activities with the rec department, just so that, because it wouldn't necessarily be on people's mind if they're under a certain age, that there might be activities that they could
We have
partake
had
in.
conversations, and that is a part of trying to fill in the evening programs. Like, we talked about, busy working parents that don't have a lot of time, like myself included. I always, my staff and I joke that we always want to do that. We don't joke. We want to participate in programs during the day, but we're working. So we're excited to be able to participate in the evening. But as a way to encourage more parents to come in, because childcare can be challenging, that if we were able to have the rec department maybe offer a program at the same time, that we could do maybe a yoga class for parents, or at the same time, parents and kids working, on an activity that we could do that. So there's a lot to explore, and we're going to, pursue that.
Great, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Snep. Anyone else? Yes, Councillor Hebert.
Thank you very much, Maddie. And again, thank you to the committee and council and friends of the center that took the time to be here tonight. As a newly appointed to your council, I have to say that the energy is absolutely awesome. And whoever said, I did feel like I was at some community college with energy, creativity, enthusiasm. It's just wonderful what you're doing there. And so I told you everybody would be excited. So thank you so much.
And
Thanks.
thank you. And I will say we do very much miss Councillor Flores, but we're very excited to welcome you to the Council on
Thank you.
Aging.
He may
John
come,
can still
he
come
may
back
come in the
anytime.
front
He
door
can
anyway.
come back to visit anytime he wants.
Councillor Flores may come in the front door, so.
Exactly.
Councillor Flores, Vice
Thank you.
President.
I'll come in the front door, the back door, the side door, all of the above. No, I just wanted to commend you, your staff, the Council on Aging, the Friends of the Council, having been the liaison for 2 years, and now being the Vice President, I had to pass the baton to another fellow councilor, in this case, Paul Hebert. But there's probably not a meeting I enjoy more than the third Wednesday of every month at 9 a.m. At the center, because Councilor Hebert's correct. I mean, there's a lot of energy in that room, a lot of conversation, a lot of discussion, and so much commitment. Having attended all of these meetings over the past couple of years when we were going through the name change, doing the discussions, it was just an amazing opportunity for me, just as a member of the town, to really see how committed not only the staff were and the boards were, but the folks were. I don't think there was a time they didn't have less than probably 75 to 100 people contributing, if you will, input. So this is a job well done. I applaud in terms of the direction that we are going, and I wish obviously it's as successful as it possibly can be, because there's a lot of 50-year-olds like me, a lot of 50-year-olds like me that really do want to
I
go.
didn't think you were a day over 40. I never would have. But
Thank you.
We'll be here all night if we
Yes.
start this with him. I'm telling you, there's no end.
thank you.
Any other councilors? Councilors, I will encourage you to support the pickleball initiative
Yes.
that's coming forward,
Yes,
because
pickleball.
it
There's
seems
been
to
a lot
be,
of talk about pickleball.
What is the
seems to be a
woman's
great
name?
Anna Valtzakis.
Anna.
Yes.
Yeah, she's
We are going to be moving forward with a lot of visioning about our outdoor spaces at the
Good.
center.
including the pond in the back. to do
Yes,
some
the
little-
trail around the pond.
Councillor
Yeah, there's a
Dagwan.
lot of interest.
Maddie, it's great to see you here
too.
tonight, and I'm a pickleball player as well.
We're all going to be pickleball
Yeah, I'm
players.
just picking up a new sport, so can't play tennis as the way I used to, so pickleball's a great substitution. But I want to commend you, too, for reaching out in the community and getting so many people involved. I know there was an issue for the minority community, getting them in, and it has grown at the senior center. And when I look at this compass with all the faces on it, these are friends of mine. And the fact that, people think that, we go to the senior center, they've defined who's there, but there are a lot of intelligent folks there. You got teachers, doctors, lawyers, realtors, really, really talented people that are there, and you just get so much from it. And all the activities are just, I think I talked to somebody today who said they had taken a course over there, a computer class and whatnot. So it's, it's expanding, and I'm just proud of the direction that it's going, and you ought to be too.
Thank you.
Well,
I
thank
am
you for
very,
your
very proud. My staff and I, as I think you understand that, knowing over the years, that we're very committed and dedicated. And we feel, honestly, I say this all the time, when I talk to people, but I feel like we are in an extremely privileged position. And, I get to travel a lot. I'm the vice president of our State Association of Councils on Aging. So part of the, great thing that brings me is I get to visit a lot of other centres, and coming home to Barnstable, I can never be more proud of what we have in our community and the commitment that we have from all of you. And as Councillor Flores mentioned, the investment that our older, community members have in the centre, that it really is a very valuable and vibrant place for us. Thank you.
Vice President?
Yeah, just a final quick comment. This compass that comes out on a monthly basis, when you compare it to every other community across the Commonwealth, probably it stands out as number one and number two. When you look at the
I wouldn't have said that, but thank you.
No, seriously.
Well, no, I just didn't want to brag.
I understand. Well, I'm bragging on your behalf, because when you look at the number of activities that we offer as a community through the Adult Community Center, as it's now called, it's amazing when we compare ourselves to other towns and communities across the Commonwealth, which is what we did, probably a year ago. It's absolutely incredible, the level of opportunities and the mix, if you will, of the so many different kinds of opportunities that we have.
Thank you. And we always try and make it better. I mean, it's not something we think it's great. It is. We're always looking at ways to improve. And thanks, Councillor Dagwan, for mentioning the cover. We intentionally wanted to promote the Women of Colour Book Club that just recently started meeting as a way to promote diversity. As you know, we've also really reached out to the LGBT community on the Cape. Our Assistant Director, Donna Burns, has done unbelievable work and recently received an award for her efforts on that behalf. So again, it's really the commitment to being inclusive, being welcoming, being accessible, that everybody, has something to connect with through our doors, and something we learn from everybody too. And also on that regard, we are seen as a leader on the state, and there are a lot of other communities that are looking to us. I know that it was very affirming to me when I saw the work that Boston had done, and that it had been an 8-year process on that part. We know things like this don't happen overnight. It takes a lot of thought and meaningful conversation. And for us, I know that the same sense that I got in seeing what Boston was doing, that we were on the right track, that other communities will get the leverage they need from us now to, feel more confident about moving forward in their communities. So thank you.
All right, no other questions? Thank you very much.
Thank
Barnstable
you.
delivers on Barnstable's programs, and you're a great director.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Action on the minutes.
If I may just, sorry, I want to just mention that our town manager, Mark Ells, came over to the senior centre yesterday to participate in the annual Mayors for Meals program, which is an awareness campaign for Meals on Wheels, the importance of that to people who are homebound and need a nutritious meal. Mr. Ells came over and spent the morning yesterday out on a route throughout town, meeting with some of the recipients of that program. So I just want to thank him for taking the time to do that.
You didn't let him drive, though, did you? Okay. Thank you. Yes, we're acting on the minutes.
Yes, I would
Vice
like to
President.
present for approval, Mr. President, the minutes from March 7th, as well as announcement and review and determination of various executive session minutes dated January 19th, 2017, November 2nd of 2017, February 1st, 2018, April 4th, April 26th, 2018, May 3rd, 2018, as written.
Well, you're cutting in on my action, so we got to split them up a little bit.
Right.
So I'm going to ask you to move the minutes of March 7th, 2019 as
So
drafted.
moved.
I have a first and a second to move the minutes of March 7th, 2019 as drafted. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Any abstention? Please record that as unanimous. And the Vice President was kind enough to get us started, but there's a lot of detail in the executive session issues. Under the open meeting law, General 30A, subsection 22, the chair of a public body has the authority to review and approve executive session minutes and determine if the reason for withholding the minutes still exists. Consistent with the town council's established practice, prior to tonight's town council meeting, I review 5 sets of the executive session minutes with the Vice President, thank you, Mr. Vice President, the town clerk, and the town attorney. Based upon the review, I announce the following. I approve the executive session minutes of 11/2/17 related to the Cape Wind litigation and have authorized the release of said minutes. I approve the executive session minutes of 2/1/18 and 4/26/18 related to strategies for contract extension negotiations with Town Manager Mark Ells and have authorized the release of said minutes. I approve the executive session minutes relating to the case of Barnstable versus, this is a good one, Amia Drug Corporation et al., and have determined that continuing the non-disclosure is warranted on the opioid lawsuit. The following previously approved executive session minutes were again reviewed, and I have determined the following. On 1/19/17, the executive session minutes relating to the purchase of land or lease for water supplies have authorized the release of those said minutes. That is the activity on our executive session minutes, and we're up to date on it, I can say. So thank you very much, and thank the clerk and legal for assisting in that process. Communications from education officials, boards, committees, staffs, communication reports, correspondence, and other announcements. Councilors to my left. I will start with Councilor Dagwan.
Yes, I just want to mention that the Hyannis Open Streets Committee is met again. We're getting ready for our 2 events for April and May, and we're having a kickoff fundraiser on the 28th of March at Flashbacks here on Main Street from 5 to 8, and we have some great prizes for those who will attend. So if you're free on that day, come down to, if you haven't been to Flashbacks, it'd be a good time to come down and see Flashback and help support the Hyannis Open Street events for the year. Thank you.
Councilor Biedenbender.
Thank you, President Crocker. 2 things. One is that the Massachusetts Division of Fish and Wildlife is going to be holding a public listening session at 4 Seas on April 4th from 6 to 8 p.m. to discuss various topics relating to coyotes, including population management, hunting contests, and general hunting season guidelines. There is going to be a presentation which will be followed by a Q&A. So if you are someone who cares about the current coyote season and the wildlife killing contest that's been taking place in this town for the past 2 years, this is an excellent opportunity for you to share your concerns with Mass Fish and Wildlife and hopefully make some headway on adjusting some of the ways that these things are happening. The second piece is that I just wanted to thank the Barnstable Police Department. I had the opportunity, I was Lieutenant Murphy and Chief Sonnabend and Lieutenant Murphy reached out to me reached out to everyone on the council, reached out to us to invite us for a ride-along. And so I participated in a ride-along last week with Officer Ruggieri, and it was a really interesting and fascinating way to get a better understanding of how the Barnstable Police Department does its work. It also gives you a very different perspective of the town in general. When I drove to work the next day, I did not look at the roads quite the same. But what I want to say is that I came away from that experience feeling very proud of the police department. Not that I didn't before, but with a greater sense of respect for what they do and the proactive policing that they do every single day, every hour. So, you know, thank you to the police department for giving us this opportunity. And you are well respected, well regarded, and thank you for your service.
Just one comment, if I may. Council Biedenbender and I have discussed the Coyote, and she would love to visit that. I sent you all the notice that we always need 9 for quorum, and that is a council night. That is over at 8, and as I told you all, if anybody wants to attend, we can try to make that work. I do know I have also 2 absence that night, so Council Biedenbender makes 3. I can go 4, or we can just stay in a workshop for an hour and figure our way to somebody comes back at 8 for us. So if you're committed to this, I'm willing to work with you and try to assist on that process. Thank you. Going down my left, Council Snep.
Yes, I just have a question for Council Dagwan. Do you have the dates for the 2 open streets on April and May?
Yes, the first one is April 28th, sorry, and May 19th.
Any follow-up, Council Snep? All set?
No, those are great events, and I'm glad to know that they're going to be happening again. So.
I would certainly agree. Council Collins?
Yes, I just wanted to mention the Youth Commission briefly. Last Friday on the 15th was their annual prevention summit that they hold at Four Seas, and I have a Friday meeting that for some reason is super important to management. I don't really know why. I still can't figure out why. But anyway, I have to be there every Friday, usually all day ad nauseum, and I checked out a little early and made it to Four Seas to watch this summit again. And every year it's different because every year it's different leadership on the commission. And this, I have to say, we should be proud of these kids. They are really working very hard to prevent 7th graders from running into trouble when they get into 8th grade by peer pressure and just not knowing their way around and falling victim to forces and currents that might be stronger than they are. Councilor Levesque's son is one of those, the same young man that was pictured on the senior center presentation. And there was one speaker in particular that I thought was really amazing, Kevin Rosario, who spoke a couple of times, I believe, when we were talking about marijuana in town. And I had the pleasure of listening to him and the message that he sent. And it occurred to me that the Youth Commission, it's not the first time it's occurred to me, but the Youth Commission is different because it goes through the town council. It doesn't go through the school committee. And the messages that these kids can carry forth is a lot different than messages from boards or committees of students that go through the school committee. They just have a different voice. It's a different arm. They tend to be a little more raw. The message tends to be a little more true. And I felt like his presentation, dropping the F-bomb, swearing a little bit, those kids, they paid attention and they listened to him. And he has really scary stories to tell about being lost and battered and you know, in the drug culture and everything else. And these kids just sat there gobsmacked, listening to him. And it was the real message that he sent, the real raw message that I went home and shared with my 11-year-old immediately thereafter. And I went up to Kevin Rosario afterward and asked if they had any, if he'd ever done a TED Talk sort of an idea, or if anybody had ever videotaped him. And he's going to get back to me about that. He says he thinks he did a pre-prom presentation for Nauset a few years ago and talked about the dangers associated with drugs, but not just that. Also, what gets you to that point? The peer pressure, the insecurity, the teenage years. It was just such a clear picture that he painted for me, definitely as an adult, and all of those kids. That everyone identified with something that man said that day. And I just think that we are doing the right thing in this town by having kids in high school looking out for new kids coming in. The entire 7th grade was held hostage that day at Four Seas and had to listen to this guy. And we are doing something right that way. So I want to applaud the Youth Commission. And I asked for Lynn Poyant to put the brochure from the thing in every counselor's mailbox. But if you see any of these kids that have had anything to do with this, they are the future leaders. They are the ones who are looking out for your kids. And I just am so proud of them all. And I want to say thank you to Councillor Schnepp and Councillor Levesque for also being there that day. And I know that in the past, everyone on this council has attended those things. But if we don't look out for our own, you know, it's like the same thing with roads. Barnstable is going to take care of its own problems. So I was very, very impressed. And Lynn Poyant and Patty Machado and Brian Morrison and everyone involved, it was just a really great show. And I can't wait for next year. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Councilor Coleman. Thank you for the commitment to the program. I remember clearly when the program was introduced on this dais, and everybody got behind you and your energy to make that happen. I'm looking at councilors to my right. Anybody would like to speak? Councilor Levesque.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just wanted to give a big thank you to all the staff that are involved in that project over there on 149 from the DPW, Town Manager's Office, Paul Graves, who's the project manager, and Rob Steen, who's come out to the Marston's Mills Village Association meetings as well as Paul Graves, and just to really try to reach out and make things right. It's really a difficult thing to try to make every business owner there happy, but I really do believe that they are trying to make everybody happy and really putting the listening ears forward and bring those issues and concerns of those business owners and the people, the constituents, I should say, of that area, their needs first, and of course the Barnstable Police working alongside the project managers and the engineers. There's just a lot of moving parts there, and of course the contractor, make sure that they're doing what they're supposed to be doing as well and communicating daily what they're going to be digging up and putting back and things of that nature. So I just want to applaud the effort that's going forth, and it continues to get better and better every day. And I also just ditto to what Councilor Cullum had to say about the Youth Commission meeting. I had the opportunity pretty much to be there the whole day. I hung out with Kippy Diggs the whole day. I was the adult supervisor for the Youth Commission, and you know, he took the day off as well to spend time with those kids, and he's put a lot of time and investment in as well, and obviously born and raised here in Barnstable. And so it was just a great time, and be able to see those kids put effort forth and have impact. And I tell you that the questions, again, having that realness put forth, these questions that these 7th graders have and the things that they're dealing with is amazing and sometimes shocking, but at the same time to have them have a comfort level of a place that's safe, that they can express themselves, learn, and find out, honestly, ways around these pitfalls, these potholes they're going to face in life, and ways out. You know, I know as a young person, I was looking for a way out, and not to completely lose face and look like a complete nerd or whatever it was, you know, and that's a lot of what the Youth Commission and that Youth Summit provides, so great job.
Thank you, Councilor Levesque. Councilor Rapcorsetti.
Thank you, Mr. President. I just want to make a notification that starting April 1st, the Town of Barnstable Harbor Master's Office will start selling small vessel decals for the upcoming season. This is a new regulation that all vessels stored on town ways to water, landings, beaches, docks, are required to have a decal. And the decal price is $25 if you hold a mooring permit, and $50 for anyone else. So if you have a kayak thrown on the beach, you're going to need a decal. Otherwise, Harbor Master's Office will be going around and ticketing and taking the vessels. So all those decals can be purchased at the Marine Environmental Department office between 8:30 a.m. And 4:15 p.m. Monday through Friday, and you can go on their website for more information. So that's a new regulation, and we've got a lot of boat owners in the community, so just be aware of that new rule. Thank you.
Thank you, Councilor Rep Cressetti. Any other councilors to my right? Mr. Vice President?
Thank you, Mr. President. Just letting folks know that this coming Saturday, we will be having the annual, well, it was the Polar Plunge. It should have happened on January 1st. It's now going to be the Spring Plunge that will be happening this coming Saturday at Millway Beach. Jumping into the water at 11 o'clock, 11 a.m., and then followed with a little party and a get-together at the Dolphin Restaurant at noontime. This is a fundraiser that will be supporting Dance in the Rain, which probably many of you know is a peer-to-peer mental health center program in Hyannis. It deals with those folks having some related mental illness issue, ages 14 and up. So again, Polar Plunge, as it was called, it still is called, but I guess I'm going to call it the Spring Plunge because it is spring now. 11 o'clock Saturday, March 23rd, and there is a kickoff event on Friday night at Cape Cod Beer. They're going to sort of kick the whole thing off, and followed by maybe some people will need a polar plunge on a Saturday. But with that being said, it should be a good time. It's for a good effort. It's for a good cause. And so I would encourage anyone who has interest in going to that to attend. In addition, this coming Sunday from 5 to, I guess, about 7:30 p.m., the Sturgis Library, which is our library in Barnstable Village, they do a terrific job. We'll be having a fundraiser dinner starting at 5 o'clock. Tickets, I believe, still are available. And Lucy Loomis, who is the director, does a superb job at that library. And this is another way to bring in additional funds, as well as for folks from the village, as well as across the town, to collectively get together and not necessarily just talk about library-related issues, but just to get to know each other that much better. So 2 good quality events happening over on the north side on 6A. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Vice President. On to the orders of the day.
Point of information, isn't the counselor from Precinct 1 typically in the Polar Plunge leading the pack?
I believe he has to wear a 50s striped bathing suit as well to go.
I have done that in the
With a
past.
floaty?
No, I have done that in the past wearing my Speedo.
And
It's a fundraiser. We want people to show up, John. Calm down.
and a floaty. Thank you. Yeah, there we go. On old business, if I may ask, I'm looking for Mr. Steinhelber, if you would, Counselor. 2019-080, page 3. I would like to have that continued to April 25th, please.
Yes, under old business is item 2019-080, authorization for the Airport Commission to enter into a 49-year lease for the property identified as map 311, parcel 092, and addressed as 790 Iano Road, Route 132, Hyannis, Mass. And that was to which date?
April 25th, please, our second meeting in April.
I'd like to move this to April 25th.
Do I hear a second? I have a first and a second. All those in favor of moving 2019-080 to a date certain of April 25th, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Any abstentions? Please record that as unanimous. Let's, if I may have the council's permission, I would like to go to 219-153, where we have our airport manager with us, and then we'll put 2 together with our DPW Public Works gentleman. Vice President, could I have you read in 2019-153, please, on page 8?
This is old business. This will be a roll call majority vote. It is item 2019-153. It is a supplemental appropriation and transfer order in the amount of $200,000 for the fiscal year 2019 airport capital budget as written.
I have a first and a second. All those in favor of opening the public hearing for 2019-153, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? On we go. For the rationale, please. Thank you for joining us tonight.
Thank you very much.
Katie Service, Airport Manager.
Thank you for having me here. I also have our Assistant Airport Manager, Matt Elia, with us tonight.
How are you, Matt?
Hi, Matt.
Thank you, President, Vice President, and councilors for having me here tonight. The purpose for this evening is to talk about the appropriation and transfer order in the amount of $200,000 for the fiscal year 2019 airport operating budget. The reason for the request is to transfer funds to be able to fund a $100,000 airport rates and charges study, as well as a $100,000 purchase of replacement snow removal equipment. Similar to fiscal year 18, MassDOT Aeronautics Division reached out to airports within Massachusetts and asked them if they had any projects that they would like to implement before the close of the fiscal year. So if you remember correctly, from fiscal year 18, I came to the council requesting for the funding of 5 projects that we were able to accomplish and have completed by the 30th of June. And that was funded through MassDOT 80%, and we were able to leverage $360,000 for projects that normally wouldn't take place or normally wouldn't be funded by the Aeronautics Division. So they are at that point again when they have a couple of projects within the state that have not proceeded forward, so they have extra funds for fiscal year 19. They've asked airports to provide them with a list of projects that they would like to implement. We forwarded 2 projects for them, the Airport Rates and Charges project and the purchase of snow removal equipment. Both projects are eligible for 80% reimbursement from the state. This table here shows you what the estimated cost is for the projects as well as the MassDOT share, $160,000, with the share coming from the airport of $40,000. What does this do to the airport's reserves? The supplemental appropriation and transfer order that we're requesting this evening is $200,000. Previously, I met with you last month. We asked for $765,000 for a transfer order for fuel to spend money on for fuel purchases and for legal fees. What that does is it takes our reserves down to about $2.5 million. The $3.5 million of certified reserves was certified in July of 2018. However, the airport reserves are replenished from these projects. So as I had stated, $160,000 would be grant reimbursements for the projects that we have here in front of you this evening. We also are assuming that we will have the fuel sales that would replenish minus our overhead costs that will replenish reserves by $700,000, and then the profit that's associated with those fuel sales as well. So that would bring us back up to about $3.6 million in our airport reserves. Why implement airport rates and charges study? In October of 2017, the airport completed an internal review of our airport rates and charges. We implemented very small increases to those fees associated with the services that we offer at the airport. Prior to this, the fees had not been increased since for 7 years. That's pretty significant, especially since we're a fee-based enterprise fund. In October of 2017, our rate increase saw real results for fiscal year 19. We saw increases in our landing fee revenues, aircraft parking fees, jet fuel sales, and terminal event revenue, just to name a few. The missing aspect of our 2017 modification was that we did not develop a background or justification for the reason for our rates. Oftentimes, we have tenants that are coming to the airport asking why we charge a certain fee for landing fees or certain fees for airfield maintenance. We want to be able to provide them with some background information as to how we came about identifying certain fees for the airport. And to be honest with you, the charges that we have now are based on old data. It's antiquated data that we really need to update. The study itself will analyze the airport's expenses, outlining and modeling a fee structure for the future so that we can look at our expenses and make sure that we're appropriately covering those expenses with the fees that we charge. We're also going to receive a modeling database that allows us to look at changes year over year so that we can revisit our rates and charges as the town does on an annual basis and make appropriate increases. What this does for our business goal plans, which in May we will be presenting to you the airport's business goals. A draft form has identified that we have four goals, and this particular project will be able to reach the goal of diversifying our revenue streams as well as enhancing the airport image and branding by identifying how we justify our costs. So if we have customers that have those questions, we can go ahead and do that by enhancing our image with our customers. It's giving us the chance and the ability to reach our full potential. This is just one of the starts and one of the studies that we need to do that. Moving on to the second project, which is snow removal equipment. The project is to replace two pieces of equipment that help us meet our FAR Part 139 certification requirements to make sure that the airfield is safe and snow is removed. We actually had a good year this year, so that wasn't too bad. We have two pieces of equipment that we hope to replace. They're both 20 years old. The capital outlay for fiscal year 17 and 18 had both of these pieces of equipment in those projects. We deferred them for 2 years in a row because of where we were in our finances for the airport. However, maybe that was a blessing in disguise because we were going to be paying for that 100%. The airport was going to fund that completely on its own. But with this MassDOT grant, we'll be able to have a savings of $80,000 for the purchase of those two trucks. This does meet business plan goals. It maximizes general aviation activity at Hyannis, giving our users the ability to get into the airport when they need to, and enhances, again, the airport image, relating to our customers that we're ready to do business and we're here to do it with the proper equipment. With that being said, my request is that you approve the supplemental appropriation order in the amount of $200,000 to cover the cost of the two projects. And at this point in time, I'd like to see if you have any questions for me.
We'll save our questions for one moment. Airport Manager, this is a public hearing, and we are in a public hearing, so I would ask, does anyone from the public have any questions? Hearing none, I'd ask for a motion to close the public portion.
So moved.
And a second? I got a first and a second. All those in favor of closing the public portion, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Any questions of our airport manager? Yes, Councilor Rapcorsetti.
Thank you, Mr. President. Katie, in your summary, it says the two projects were identified as being eligible. Is this a guaranteed reimbursement from MassDOT?
It is. We've already received a signed grant from them for the project.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Councilor Snep.
Katie, you mentioned in the rationale that the rates and fees need to be analyzed at least annually, and then your presentation mentioned that there'll be a model that you could then use for that. Will there be any continuing cost to using that model, or will you get the whole package with the $100,000?
We will get the whole package with the $100,000. It's essentially a program that they're developing for us, that they give to us at the end of the project so that we can continue to use it.
Councilor Cullum.
Yes, I just want to say congratulations on the nuts and bolts, figuring out that you need to have this sort of analysis in order to move forward and project rates and track growth. And I think it's really important, and it's something that's been absent for the past 8 years that I've been up here. So excellent job.
Thank you.
Yes, Vice President.
Thank you, Mr. President. Thank you, Katie, for the presentation. I'm just curious in terms of who is doing the study and what is the cost relative to the airport's rates and that research that's happening?
So McFarland Johnson, who is our on-call planner, is doing the study for us. They've done similar studies at other airports in the region. And what was your second question? I'm sorry.
What is the cost?
The $100,000
$100,000
for the study, yes.
Okay, so that's part of it. Okay,
yes.
Thank you. And will there be any discussion relative to doing anything for a passenger survey as part of that in terms of what the folks who are coming in through there on a regular basis might be looking for or what they might need?
Not as part of this study, but however, we will be embarking on our master plan shortly and also our business plan. Matt and I have plans to do several surveys that will hone into what our passenger needs are for this region. So those are other plans that are coming, and really May is going to be a busy month for us because we're going to start a lot of studies that really are needed.
Well, that's good, because when I did live on Nantucket, I used to commute on a regular basis, back and forth, and no one really ever asked the passenger, what they wanted in the airport, and
probably would have said, should have put the coffee shop on the other side facing the runways.
I agree.
So you could watch the airplanes. But with that being said, how is Cape Cod Coffee doing? And I applaud you also for the numerous events that you have planned there. You've done some things with the Cape Cod Young Professionals. I know we have Boy Scouts coming there. I'm the liaison now to the Airport Commission. Lots of fun kinds of things, turning that terminal into a destination, if you will. You might want to share with the council so that they know that.
Sure.
They're all good.
Sure.
Good opportunities.
You know, maybe in a future date, I can also provide that during the town manager's communications update, so we can go over what those events are. But really, in a nutshell, the Cub Scouts, that's a really exciting event that we have happening on the 26th. And it's going to be a night at the terminal instead of a night at the museum. So Matt has done a really good job planning a schedule for that, for different activities for the kids. We just recently received buy-in from a lot of our tenants that are going to participate. So we have a full event planned for the kids. We'll have about 30 people at the airport staying overnight. That's children and their parents. And we have different events that we're covering where they'll go out into the airfield and they'll see what the airfield looks at night. But Matt also has planned a lot of, demonstrations so the kids can have, airplane races so they can understand lift and what lift means. And so we have a lot of fun things that they're going to do that are all aviation related. Cape Air will be present. They're also going to, Cape Air and Retric Shuttle will be bringing an aircraft out onto the ramp so that the kids can actually go out to the aircraft, feel it, touch it, get in the aircraft, ask any questions that they might have. So we're really excited about it. It also ties into aviation being very much a part of education for kids, especially young kids, to get them interested in an aviation field. So we're kickstarting it at the airport.
I think you mentioned at the last meeting, too, at the airport, that the kids are also going to have the opportunity to go into the tower during the daytime as well as in the nighttime to see the differences, which I thought was pretty cool.
Right. They're going to have the opportunity to go up in the tower, which not many people do get that opportunity. So our tower manager, he's really helping us out by getting shifts of kids up to the tower. As you can imagine, the cab's kind of small, so that will be interesting.
Sure. And as an extension of that, remember Cape Cod Community College now has an aviation program in partnership with Bridgewater State University.
Yes, we've been talking to Cape Air about that because they are also have open communications with both colleges. And really what we need to do in the future is start something at the airport that's a flight school so that when kids are in high school or they are younger and they're getting interested in aviation, they have an opportunity to come to the airport and actually go on a flight or learn from the airport. Right now we don't have that.
Right. Well, I'm currently now on the Board of Trustees at Cape Cod Community College, and I'm trying to convince the president, Dr. Cox, to figure out a way to get that facility that's now housed at Plymouth Airport back onto Barnstable property. That's where it should be.
That's great. We have room. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Could I ask Mark Milne, Director of Finance, to please come forward for a moment? We had a abundance of these come in last year as well, so maybe you can give the councils a history how it's being reimbursed. It's not our traditional fashion, but it did work out last year, and hopefully we get the same belief for this year as well. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. President. Mark Mellon, Director of Finance. Yeah, this is really a temporary loan against ourselves. We're just borrowing from our reserves in anticipation of these grant reimbursements. So we upfront the cost, we incur it, pay the vendor, and then submit for reimbursement to the DOT in this instance, and we get reimbursed for the cost of the project, less our contribution from the surplus. So this happens on a routine basis out at the airport. A lot of federal and state grant funding received, and oftentimes the way the reimbursement programs work is we have to fund them up front and then wait for the reimbursement. And they're very timely with their reimbursements as well.
Yes. One reason why we also talk about our reserve so that we're available to do this at the end of the year.
One important aspect of having one.
Right. Thank you very much. Appreciate that important fact. Any further questions? Yes, Councilor Tinsley.
Second.
All those in favor of moving the question? Aye. Any opposition? We need a roll call from our Assistant Town Clerk.
Bienenbender,
Yes.
Crocker,
Yes.
Cullum,
Yes.
Dagwan,
Yes.
Flores.
Yes.
Rep Grissetti.
Yes.
Hebert,
Yes.
Levesque,
Yes.
Schnepp,
Yes.
Steinhilber,
Yes.
Tinsley,
Yes.
Wallace.
Yes.
Thank you very
Thank
much.
you very
Thank you,
much.
Matt, also for coming in tonight. Back on with the Department of Public Works and Director Dan Santos, 219-151. Could I ask Councilor Cullum, please, to read that in? It's on page 6.
Yep. Item number 2019-151, appropriation and transfer order in the amount of $80,000 for burial equipment for the Department of Public Works Cemetery Program. This is a public hearing. Roll call, majority vote.
I have a first and second. All those in favor of opening the public hearing, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? For the rationale, please, Director Dan Santos.
Thank you. Town of Barnstable Structures and Grounds Cemetery Program is requesting the transfer of $80,000 from the Cemetery Lots Special Revenue Fund used for the purpose of purchasing burial equipment. Funds will be used to purchase a new dump truck with plow, a casket lowering device, refurbishing an additional casket lowering device, purchasing miscellaneous graveside equipment. And the purchase of this equipment will improve efficiencies for grave openings and keep our interment equipment and cemetery truck in serviceable condition. As part of the town's long-range plan for the periodic replacement of equipment used for the maintenance of cemeteries and interment services, receipts from the sale of cemetery lots are credited to a special revenue fund in accordance with Massachusetts general finance laws. The cost of this equipment can be solely covered by this dedicated cemetery revenue fund. In accordance with Massachusetts general finance laws, the town maintains a special reserve fund to which the receipt from the sale of cemetery lots are credited. Subsequently, these receipts may be appropriated for the cost of maintaining and improving the town's cemeteries. This account currently has a balance of $166,580. There is no fiscal impact on the general fund operating budget. Thank you.
Thank you very much. This is a public hearing. Anyone interested from the public in speaking tonight to us on this issue? Hearing none, I take a motion to close the public hearing portion. Second? First and second. All those in favor of closing the public hearing portion on 2019-151, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposition? Abstentions? Hearing none. Councilors, do we have any discussions with Mr. Santos? Commissioner Santos? Director? I've got a motion to move the question. All those in favor of moving the question, please. All those in favor of moving the questions, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Any opposed? It's a roll call, and our assistant town clerk will carry us. Majority.
Crocker,
Yes.
Cullum,
Yes.
Dagwan,
Yes.
Flores,
Yes.
Rapcorsetti,
Yes.
Hebert,
Yes.
Levesque,
Yes.
Schnapp,
Yes.
Steinhilber,
Yes.
Tinsley,
Yes.
Wallace,
Yes.
Bienenbender.
Yes.
Thank you very much. Passes. 2019-154, page 11. Councilor Hebert, could you bring me in on that, please? Public hearing.
Yes, Mr. President. This is a public hearing, roll call, majority vote on item number 2019-154, supplemental appropriation and transfer order in the amount of $44,617 for fiscal year 2019 public safety operational and maintenance improvements at Bismarck Park.
Thank you very much. We have Elizabeth Hodgraves with us today. How are you?
Good evening,
Welcome.
President, Vice President, councilors, and viewers, if you're up this late. Thank you for considering this on your agenda and also your time. I know it's late. But Bismarck Park, again, my name is Liz Hartsgrove. I'm the Assistant Director of Planning and Development. And I have been working with a team, Sergeant McKenna, Officer Gallant, Officer Lounsbury, Dan Horn from MEA, Derek Lawson from MEA, engineering, highways, structures, P&D staff, which is Mona Salamonte, who's our parking program manager, Melissa Chartrand, who's our arts and cultural coordinator, as well as our gateway greeter leader, Grace Rogers, who's also my clicker for tonight. So On tonight, what you're considering tonight is separated into 3 categories: a public safety, comfort station host, and park projects. And this is all in line with your mission of protecting, engaging, and enacting with the community. The first we're going to tackle is actually the most important, as you probably are aware, is the public safety component of it. And to make it simplified for you guys, because it's very involved, we're going to separate it again into 4 different categories so you can see it and we can layer it on top of each other. We're going to separate it into large capacity passenger vehicles, taxi, livery, and rideshare, or TNC, which is Transportation Network Companies, harbor master activity, as well as public safety team who's monitoring pedestrian traffic. This is in Seoul. We're going to be focusing on the parcel, the bookend off-street parking lot on the south end of Bismore Park, which is abutting the Highline property. As you can see, the current layout of it on the 9 parking spaces that are directly abutting the Highline, those are currently in a pilot program for 15 minutes. We tried that out this past year. We had feedback from Highline that they needed some just in and out type of movement where people could come in, drop off their passengers, unload the baggage, and then the driver could then leave or sit and wait for their loved ones to come off of the boats. The other thing was also that they didn't have a to-go type of to run into the restaurant, grab their item, and then come back out without having to feel like obligated to pay for in the parking machines. So this past year, we tried the 15 minutes. But what we're going to focus on actually is the categories that are really involved with it. So we do have, with the large capacity vehicles, we do have the shuttles, we have trolleys, we have school buses, and we have tour buses. The first are the shuttles, and this past year, Highline incorporated 2 brand new shuttles to take to their off-site facilities, their parking lot facilities. They're trying this out. They had 2. And this past year, during the height of the season, each of those vehicles were making about 45 to 50 trips a day. This is a brand new impact on our property. So as you can see from the box that's in above the 15-minute spaces, they were utilizing our property to pick up and drop off their passengers. And as you can see from the line that goes up and around, that's the traffic pattern through the lot. Okay, so you can see how there's a little bit of a conflict right there when you start adding these layers. So next is the trolleys. The RTA provides the trolleys. This is on average about 10 times a day, and what happens is because there's not a dedicated space for them, what they do is they actually stop in the middle of Ocean Street, and we have a gateway greeter at that traffic island. We have, as you are probably aware, we have a gateway greeter information booth there, and they have been assisting with passengers who are utilizing the trolley and maneuvering them through the parked vehicles, through those spaces, into Ocean Street, so then they can safely load. But that's not really safe. So next is school buses. School buses are year-round mode of usage in that lot. You wouldn't think that. You would think that maybe during the school year, sporting events, you know, they're going to Martha's Vineyard or Nantucket to compete and stuff. Well, we also have summer school programs, and they utilize and they drop off their kids and they go across the island for the day trip. So this is reoccurring probably 2 to 3 times a day, on top of the 45 trips of the shuttle, the 10 times of the trolley, and then sometimes we get 2 to 3 at one time of school buses. So this example just shows you one school bus in the most frequent location where we have found them to park and wait for their school children to come off. The next are the tour buses, and that again is increasing because we're real good. We're doing our job. We're getting people here to visit and become a destination. So this is actually starting in April and going all the way to November, really. The shoulder seasons are extending, and we're getting a lot of them. So there are times where we have 2 to 3 that are utilizing this space, dropping off and picking up passengers. So again, this is really for just for the large capacity vehicles. It is predominantly for just picking up and dropping off passengers. They do know, for at least the tour buses, we have carved out a space on Old Colony for 10-hour parking, so that way the driver could also go with the passengers over to the islands if that is part of their itinerary for the day. So, so what we are proposing actually is reinstating those 15-minute parking spaces and swapping out and taking out the spaces along Ocean Street. And then with the shuttles and the trolleys being the most frequent use of the large capacity passenger vehicles, that we would actually create benches, we'd install benches and signs and having destination areas for the passengers to set up and line up with the assistance of the gateway greeter to be there for information and assisting them in the right area. So the trolleys and the shuttles would have these locations that are marked out for those most frequent uses. And also during that time, so then what would happen is all of those 4 components of the large capacity passenger vehicles would actually come down Ocean Street. They would be able to pull in, their doors would open to the sidewalk, and the passengers, so it would be handicapped accessible and all of that, and all of the passengers would be able to be safely waiting on the sidewalk versus waiting in the parking lot, waiting all over the place. So we have a more organized fashion of keeping these large vehicles out of the area. The second component of this program to organize it with this public safety component is the increase of the taxi, livery, and ride share component of it. So again, this is now the second layer of it. As you can see, I tried to color code and try to show you the typical ways that we have been seeing this on a daily basis down. It's actually quite amazing. We've had a massive increase of the ride share. We had, just in Barnstable this past year, fiscal year, we had over 114,000 transactions of ride share. That includes Uber and Lyft. Falmouth only had 52,000. And though the state can't give us actual longitude and latitudes of where those rides originated, we can safely assume that most of it happened in the triangle area of the transportation, whether it be the airport, the RTA center, or Highline area, Bismore Park, or the Steamship Authority area, or Main Street, downtown. So 114,000 transactions of rideshare this past fiscal year. And as you can see, when taxis will line up in the middle of the aisle, so it's again blocking the passenger vehicles, the personal passenger vehicles. It's starting to build up. And these are all occupying the paid parking spaces. And if they don't find a space, they circle, and they circle, and they circle. And that's what they do. So they wait, and they will circle for 10 minutes straight, just making loops like a merry-go-round. So what we are planning and proposing to do is actually instruct them with signage before they even invest going down Ocean Street, that on South Street intersection, we will be placing signage to instruct the large capacity passenger vehicles as well as the TNC and taxi and liveries. They will be going down Old Colony, coming up onto Nantucket, where there will be a designated waiting area for them. So they can wait safely on Nantucket Street, and we have we've had engineering and highway look at this, and they know that they have signed off saying that there is enough room that we can accommodate up to 30 vehicles along Nantucket Street. So, and then what will happen is that we will have signage at Bismore Park, and with the cooperation of Highline as well. They have been involved with this plan as well from the get-go since we started looking at this in last July. And so what we will be doing is placing signage to instruct passengers with crosswalks, over the crosswalks, and to Nantucket Street to pick up their ride shares, or if they need assistance, that the vehicles will be allowed to actually go onto Highline's property and actually pick up their vehicles from, pick up their passengers on the Highline property there. The next layer is the Harbor Master activity. In that blue rectangle there, that is the typical location where oil truck deliveries, picking up shellfish and the daily catches that everybody comes to watch. It's a nice attraction down there, but it is also a public safety component that we need to be careful of and mindful of. So what happens is that as you can see with the traffic patterns of the vehicles going through, and then the yellow arrows are pedestrian traffic. That is to typical pedestrian ways that they walk. And as you can see, it conflicts with the Harbor Master activity. And we do not have any barriers or anything preventing the pedestrians from actually stopping them from that. So you would be amazed to see the interaction and the involvement in trying to keep these people safe, and they are very determined to go in a straight line. So, so what we are proposing is actually installing these retractable fences. So similar to like when you're at the bank and you have those retractable little pylon things that, you know, if they, and you walk and you follow in and you know where to go, or these will be actually 4-foot tall, full scrim from bottom to top, so there's no way that a child could get through. And we will be able to pull them across, and they will be bright colored and reflective. And they will be placed at where the dumpster is located, as well as across the area where the Highline area is. And we will put a center post in the middle where the Highline property line is, so that way there will actually be two, so we can open it up for deliveries, which we accommodate for Highline on our property. So to recap these 4 scenarios, or these 4 layers for vehicle, we have the Harbor Master activity, and then we have the large capacity vehicles, so get ready for this one. The next are the taxis, TNCs, and liveries. And then after that, we have the passengers, the pedestrians. And this does not take into consideration the personal vehicles that are also accommodating this very tight little area. So, how are we going to do it? With the fabulous team that's sitting right there and standing right here for you. We have involvement with the police details, with parking resource officers, the Harbor Master's office, as well as the gateway greeters, all located there. So what we plan to do is we actually are going to be painting a pedestrian walkway along the bulkhead area. You'd be amazed that when people actually follow painted lines and stuff, we all fall back into our grade school of everybody standing in line and following through. So it actually is going to assist and also help out with vehicles, identifying areas where they're not supposed to be and driving through. And at the bottom apron areas, we will have 2 police details stationed there. Next, after that, we will also have a parking resource officer, or a pro, at the top peak of the island that will be able to make sure and ensure pedestrian safety. Will be walking in the designated area, and then making sure that vehicles are not actually encroaching on and onto the pedestrians. When Harbor Master activity is occurring and the retractable fencing will be up, the Harbor Master will place one of his employees, his seasonals, at the one fence that is along the dumpster area to direct pedestrians down the walkway to the sidewalk along Ocean Street. And then we will also have, when the Harbor Master activity is occurring, we will have 2 more additional gateway greeters, since we already have one stationed at the, which we call Greeter Island, because now it looks like a beach island with beach grass and shells and everything. So we have one already stationed there every day from 8 in the morning to 9 at night, pretty much 7 days a week. So they will be there at the middle point, and we will have 2 at the bookends. And then we will also be having assistance from Highline on their property to direct passengers and pedestrians over to the sidewalk. And so we keep them out, as well as the vehicles, out of this area when the harbor master activity is occurring, to keep everyone safe. So this public safety component of it is requesting $15,814 out of it to accommodate for fiscal year 19, the police details, the parking resource officer, park benches, signage, all that wonderful stuff to keep everyone safe. And this is for FY 19. So this will only take us to June 30th. The second portion of the request, which is for $14,803, is for Comfort Station hosts dedicated for Bismore. Currently, right now, the harbor master, assistant harbor masters, the seasonals, are actually cleaning those restrooms. They're not in the job description. And they're now, because we have such an intensified use, but with all of the rideshare and all of the enhancements that Highline has been making with their steam, their speed ferries and everything, and they're making more trips and they're more frequent, we're having more usage at that bathroom, at the restroom. So it has accumulated and been consuming for the assistant harbor masters. Now it's about 40% of their time is dedicated not to their job. It is to the bathrooms. And there are times when it gets to the point where we actually have to call in, unfortunately, hazmat companies to take care of situations. It gets to the point where we need to have somebody that is actually specialized in there. So this request is to have up to four dedicated employees that would be trained through the Gateway Greeter program. So they would also be informational hosts, so they would have that component. It would also assist with public safety, so there isn't some activities that we just don't want, non-family friendly activity occurring in there. We would have somebody dedicated to watch both bathrooms. But again, they would also be points of contact where they're representatives of the town. They know the mission statement. They know all of your strategic plan. I mean, our training is very intense, and it's a 3-day full training that they would have on customer service, on how to be a leader in service. So they would get all of that, and then also get the joy of cleaning the bathrooms. So, so the next one, yeah. The next one is the park projects, the third component and the last one of $14,000. As you guys were talking about, and when Maddie was actually speaking about the storytelling and the connections to our community, this is something that's really near and dear to my heart as well. When you go down to Bismarck Park, I guarantee probably you'll walk into at least meet a couple of people that have no idea why Bismarck Park is named after who Bismarck is. And we don't have anything there describing who this gentleman was. So we have, in this past year, we have been doing extensive research on Ralph Bismore, who he was, how he died, what kind of service he was, what kind that he did, who was he, how was he a member of our community, and does he have any actual ancestors or relatives still living. So we actually got in contact with one of his living sisters who's in Falmouth, and we brought her down last year, Memorial Day, and we interviewed her, and the assistant town manager brought her flowers, and we got it all on Channel 18. And then in September, we actually we were blessed to have his brother fly in, who was 93, and flew in from Seattle to come see Bismarck Park and see all the things that we were doing in honor of his brother who had died in World War II. His brother actually was in D-Day and in the Battle of the Bulge, and nobody knows about it. So those are things that we're going to be doing. We're going to have an indoor display exhibit that's permanent inside the Welcome Center that describes how he was a member of our community. He lived right at the Harbor Overlook. He worked at the Hibble Building. He was a pharmacist and a soda jerk. And he went to Barnstable High, graduated in 1931. All of those little nuances that make people feel more connected to our community will now be displayed for people to learn about it. And I think it's really important to have those connections. So that will be inside the Welcome Center, as well as exterior by his memorial stone that's over there in the park. And then we will have a greeter info booth that will also be located at the Spanky side of the parking lot. So it mimics and mirrors the one that we have at Greeter Island over on the Highline side. So how are we going to do it? We're going to make tons of site adjustments. We're going to be doing extensive training. And at least for the public safety component, we're going to do a massive outreach. We're going to be reaching out to the taxis and the liveries. We're going to be going and doing a public meeting and outreach program with them to notify them of the changes early in advance. We're also in contact with the general managers, the regional general managers of Lyft and Uber, to make sure that their drivers know of these new changes in this vicinity. We are in contact with the Cape Cod Chamber for the tour buses, and we will be reaching out to all the schools in the local area and over on the bridge, including Plymouth, that do come down and they take the ferries over. So, and we will be doing an extensive amount on social media as well as Channel 18 for the outreach. The same thing with the conversation hosts. We'll be hiring, ordering supplies, and training them extensively. And then with park projects, we will be doing the project finalizations, the site adjustments, and then again, outreach to mimic what we have been doing in the past. So, and overall, that is the total of $44,617 before you tonight. Thank you. And
Thank
I'm
you for the
available for questions.
Thank you for the rationale.
Thank you.
Assistant Director, this is a public hearing. Would anybody in the public like to speak to the issue or speak to us? Hearing none, I take a motion to close the public hearing.
Moved.
Second?
Second.
First and second to close the public hearing. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition or abstentions? None? Any questions? I would point out that under the financial impact, they have a special reserve fund of $480,000, 45 grand off the top leaves us with the 435 in the reserve account. Any questions, councilors? Yes, Councilor Rapcorsetti.
Thank you, Mr. President, and thank you, Elizabeth. Good presentation, very confusing, but, you know, good presentation.
I tried to make it as simple as possible.
No,
I'm sorry.
it's pretty hectic down there.
It is.
In mid-season. I'm just curious, you're going to be coming forward with, during the fiscal year 2020, what are the projected costs for police detail and comfort station hosts from?
Yeah, the police details, we actually get money back. We get money, a little bit of money back, 20 cents per ride from the state. So back in, I believe it was September or October, you had approved amount coming in from the state of a little over $11,000 for mitigation that impacts from TNC operations. So that will be used towards the police details. However, it doesn't go very far. So that's why we are requesting, and we initially had thought maybe just one, but when we were one police detail, but after evaluation from Sergeant McKenna and the whole team, we really felt that it was necessary at first to make sure that we get a full handle of the situation and train everybody, train the TNCs, train the large capacity vehicles, get them all on board. We do need 2 police details at this time, and maybe for the extent of the summer. So we are anticipating for the police detail a total of, it will cost at the schedule that we have recommended, it would be a total of, and this is not considering the TNC funds that are coming from the state, it's going to be a total of almost $60,000 for police detail. But we are estimating, because I don't want to overestimate and guess that we're going to increase rideshare usage, so I'm using the same figure that we had gotten from the state, so $11,000 we'll tack off, so that will be about $49,000.
And if I may, Mr. President.
Yes, please follow up.
The High Line, which this, this area services the High Line for the most part.
We complement them. We work together, yes.
Well, okay. What do they do for the town other than provide a shuttle? Because they haven't decreased their parking down on the water. They have increased their parking off-site, but they haven't removed parking down by the water and congestion there. Have they offered to help defray some of the costs of police detail or anything?
Yes, we have been in discussions with them. Nothing has been finalized. There has been, we've been weighing out different choices, whether it be that they actually pay a portion for lease, like leasing out or license agreement for the space to have the shuttle stop on our property, because they're conducting business and making money on our property. So we've been weighing out different options, but we are still in discussions with them over that.
I would encourage you to do
Yes,
that.
that is something I'm, yes.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, Council Cullen.
Yes, on that note, the 10 parking spaces, it's 10 parking spaces that'll be
Yes.
removed, correct?
Yes.
Do you happen to know off the top of your head what the revenue is from those 10 spaces typically for the summer season?
Yeah, it's actually a swap with the money that we had lost from the other 10 that were within the lot. It's approximately $24,000 that we
Okay.
would be losing. Well, we lost it last year, but, you know, but we're actually making up for it. If you actually look at the money that because we have a really solid team down there that is encouraging people to park correctly. And that's the key that we have actually been trying to portray for the last 5 years with our Park Happy motto, is actually setting everyone up for success. So even though we lost 9 spaces last year for this pilot program, our revenues didn't decrease. Because what we asked them to do and made sure is setting up people for positive management.
Yeah, I understand that, but
Yeah.
all those employees are paid as well.
Yes.
So in the end, all the services we provide have a price tag attached.
They do.
And I would definitely, as Councilor Rep Grissetti said, I would definitely hit up Highline for the 24 grand. If we're giving them 15 minutes of fun to go in and get a Danish and whatever else and unload. Because the traffic hazards that the congestion that Highline is associated with Highline that's in that district, which is my district, is something that we really need to consider some cost recovery on. But I think it's a great effort, and I understand it is what it is, and we need to make it organized, and we need to make it better, and we need to make it safe. I'm just not convinced that the taxpayer needs to bear the burden of all the cost. Because, the more people we employ, the more people cleaning the restrooms, the less the taxpayer sees in the bottom line.
I agree.
Thank you.
Could I ask our Director of Finance, please come forward? The payment actually comes out of the reserve, so could you explain the reserve process?
Mark Mellon, Director of Finance. Yes, we have a separate special revenue fund where we account for all of the parking receipts generated by the Bismarck Park operation. That goes into a dedicated reserve fund. We generate about $340,000 a year from revenue down there. So that's the money that's being used to fund the cost of this program. And that we've generated more than what we've used over the years, so we have a $480,000 reserve. So we have a little bit of a cushion there to help with initiatives like this to get them started. I would also like to point out that we'll continue to negotiate with the Highline, but one of the reasons why the ferry embarkation fee was implemented was to offset the impacts that ferry-type services have on harbor-related activities. So we have an opportunity to look at potential funding from the embarkation fee as well to offset some of this program cost in the future.
Enterprise account, as we know it. Any other questions? Yes, Councilor Tinsley.
Question?
Why didn't you just let me do it? All those in favor of moving the question signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Hearing none, I'll turn it over to our Assistant Clerk Treasurer for a vote.
Cullum,
Yes.
Dagwan,
Yes.
Flores,
Yes.
Rep Grissetti,
Yes.
Hebert,
Yes.
Levesque,
Yes.
Schnapp,
Yes.
Steinhilber,
Yes.
Tinsley,
Yes.
Wallace,
Yes.
Bienenbender,
Yes.
Crocker.
Crocker, yes.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. Passes. My Vice President, 2019-0157.
Yes, this is new business, may be acted upon. It is item 2019-157, and it is the appointment of a Barnstable member to the Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund Management Board. In this case, it will be recommended that we appoint Town Manager Mark Ells to the Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund Management Board to serve a 3-year term as written.
First and a second. I don't hear any discussion, so I'm moving right to the vote. Any discussion? Yeah. All those in favor of moving the question signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? On the vote of 2019-157, the appointment of the Barnstable member to the Cape and Islands Water Protection Fund Board, being Mark Ells, Town Manager, for a term of 3 years. Please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Any abstention? Please record that as unanimous. I'm on 2019-158, page 17, please. I would ask Council Levesque to help me with that.
Thank you, Mr. President. This is new business may be acted upon, item number 2019-158, a loan order rescissions ordered that amount of $38,297,163 of unissued loan authorizations be rescinded as follows, as written.
Thank you. So I have a second, first and a second. I have rationale with our Director of Finance, Mark Mellon, please.
Thank you, Mr. President. Anytime you don't have to borrow $38 million, it's a good thing. So, these projects have either been completed, have not gone forward, and in most cases, specifically with the airport projects, we received federal or state grant reimbursement, negating the need to have to borrow the monies. Good thing. So from time to time, we review our authorized borrowed authorizations on our borrowing list that we've had, and we rescind those that we no longer need. We're subject to a debt limit by state law. We want to make sure that we maximize what we have available, especially with the large capital programs that we have coming forward. So this keeps our capacity under that debt limit maximized.
Thank you. I would point out anytime you have to borrow money and have Barnstable's rate, that's a good day, too.
Yes, it is.
This could be acted upon. Anybody have any questions of our Director of Finance? Hearing none. All those in favor? I did get to move the question. I got a second on move the question? First and second. All those in favor of moving the question, signify by saying aye. Okay. All those in favor of 2019-158 as written, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Opposition? Abstentions? Please record that as unanimous. 2019-159, Councilor I'll go to Councilor Wallace, please. It's on page 19.
Okay, thank you, Mr. President. This is new business. We're going to refer this to a second read on April 4th, 2019. It's item number 2019-159. It's an acceptance of a sidewalk easement for 80 Perseverance Way, Hyannis, as written.
All those in favor of referring to a second read on 4/4/19, 2019-159, the acceptance of the easement, please signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposition? Any abstentions? Hearing none. Councilor Rapp Cressetti, 2019-160, please.
Thank you. This is new business. Refer to a second reading on April 4th, 2019. This is item 2019-160, appointments to a board, committee, or commission. Resolved, the Town Council appoints the following individuals to a multiple member board, committee, or commission for the Infrastructure and Energy Committee. Derek Vanier from Marston's Mills as a regular member to a term expiring 6/2021. Comprehensive Financial Advisory Committee, Melanie Powers, Marston's Mills, as a regular member to a term expiring 6/2019, as written.
Second.
All those in favor of referring to a second read on April 4th, 2019, the number of 2019-160, appointments to boards and commissions as written, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Any opposition? Any abstentions? Please signify as I would take a motion to adjourn. Second? All those in favor? Aye. Please record that as unanimous as well.